super stretch to the infield portion. The car looped around once. The driver able to get it pointed in the right direction. Look at the heavy traffic there. Jeremy, if you're coming down that back straightaway at 185 and you see that, what are you doing?
Well, what I'm thinking is if you're in the Viper, you know, and you've got 15 cars in your mirrors and you're the first one into the chicane, and you turn it around, you know, there's the potential for a lot of problems there. But it looked like everyone did a pretty good job. I did see one little piece of bodywork fly up. It looked like one of the prototypes there.
The other thing that you always think about in that situation, the car went across the grass a little and kicked some dirt up onto the surface. So with the wet conditions, that could make handling there really dicey.
Well, yeah, you know, as we saw before it started to rain, they need to build some curbs back there in that first part of the chicane, because it gets very, very dirty there, and a lot of the drivers do drop wheels because they're just trying to maximize their radius through those corners, and so it tends to get very dirty. And you're right, as you add water to that, it only gets worse. But everyone is always you know, ready for pretty slick conditions back there in the first part of the
Knifel and Frank Freon, Johnny O'Connell among the team wheeling that two-car. Look at that move, threading the needle between those two Porsches down the back straightaway and whipping into the chicane area there. Heavy traffic, as we mentioned. 80 cars started here a couple of hours ago. 61 were still on the track at last report. The number 92 Porsche coming down on the pit road right now. This is the Hubert Hoft, Anthony Kumpin, Vic Rice.
On the exhaust system, you know, it is internal, and that may be a terminal problem for that car.
There's the Zero, the Porsche GT1 machine, the Kosbica car. They've run very, very strongly here. You pointed out, Jeremy, that's a Canadian team, and three great professional drivers in that group.
Yeah, three guys that know each other, and I have actually raced against each other quite a bit, and now they're racing together, which is always an interesting dynamic. But as you say, all these guys very professional. Of course, David Epringham, very, very successful in open wheel cars. As a matter of fact, multi-time Formula Atlantic champion. So these guys, well placed, I would say, to challenge the Corvette team. You know, maybe a team with not quite as much endurance racing experience as the factory Corvette team, but the car is built like a tank, and certainly it's a great platform to, you know, try and win this race car.
Absolutely, it's probably the most sophisticated design that they've had on the racetrack. They've since come up with two that they have not run. But it's definitely the top achievement for Porsche in 1998.
There you saw the Zero car blasting by one of the AGT machines, the 44, the Team Amick car, Lyndon and David Amick, and a couple of fine pros joining him on that team. Let's go downstairs. Guy Hobbs with one of the drivers who's been in action here today, the well-known Mark Simo.
Standing actually right at the pit out, and you can see right over the shoulder the car 83 that has come to a complete halt, just completely locked up on you coming through the tri-oval.
Yeah, it's coming down the exit of NASCAR 4. Engine started to tighten up on me, and that was the end of it. And we had a pretty good run going. We were just trying to stay out of trouble, but we had some early bad luck, and that's the way it goes.
You've had some great runs here previously, running in BMWs and other various types of cars. How hard is it for you to be out and uncompetitive so early in this race?
Well, the prototype cars work amazingly good in the rain. You know, I was kind of building up my confidence because the thing works really good. Once you get up to speed, this aerodynamics really kick in, hold the cars to the ground. Kind of impressive, actually. You get on the slow stuff where there's no aero effect, and it's a whole different ballgame.
What's your schedule for the rest of the year? We're going to see you in more prototype racing?
I hope so. Nothing set in stone yet, but nothing better than a prototype car.
All right, well, hopefully we'll get that one taken back round to the garage area and fixed and started up again.
As we take a look at the Risi Ferrari, currently second overall as they come to pit road, the 12 car. Some work being done on the front end of that machine. They wipe off the windscreen. Alan DeCadney is there.
That's right, David Brabham's staying on board. It's a routine stop. They're just putting the fuel in. They're also taping up the front. He's obviously running a little cool in this weather. So they put some tank tape on the front of the car, and he's off.
And they've also changed the windscreen on that car for David Brabham for the rain.
On pit road as well, so they're going to take advantage of this caution period to get some service work done to one of the Dyson Riley and Scott Fords. Back with plenty more at day 5 of the Rolex 24 at Daytona, our live flag-to-flag coverage. One of the more interesting cars, Jeremy Dale, a car that I had not seen until getting here this weekend. This is the Marcos GT, the 24. Little back bodywork damage, it appears. Some of the undertrain perhaps flopping in the breeze there. They're running 8th overall. Corey User in that team, and they're doing a nice job. They're 3rd overall in GTS.
Yeah, 3rd in GTS, which is a great position for them to be in. These cars have mostly raced in the FIA GT Championship in Europe. And there's a waving yellow there for something. What's that? There
Car
you go.
spun. The 9 car is off track there.
And these cars are actually very well-developed race cars. And as you said, right now running 8th overall, 3rd in class. Front engine car, you know, big V8 Chevrolet engine in that car. Very effective car in the GTS class.
One of the GT BMWs, one of the Ford.
Max is down here looking pretty easy and relaxed for a good stint, double stint. How's it feel out there? And one of the big questions we're getting from a lot of viewers is the rooster tails. How bad are the rooster tails out there?
Yeah, it's quite bad. And actually, I just went in when the heavy rain started to come, and you know, it was a tough job out there. Sliding a lot, and two or three very hectic moments with slow cars, a couple of cars spinning in front of me. So still a long race.
It's keeping you really busy out there. All these cars on the track, the rain, a lot of different drivers out there. It's pretty interesting stuff, huh?
I think right now this is the most difficult 24-hour I've done.
All right. Max, of course, done many 24 hours getting ready for the opener for the kart series in Monterrey, Mexico. And their team car is coming in to make their pit stop. James Weaver will get into that one. Nick Johnson is now in for...
At the time, the BMW, the 54, came on the pit road for a wing adjustment and handed the lead in that category over to one of the Porsches, Randy Post in the 31. Rain started to fall during hour 4, and the Risi Ferrari has been among the leaders all afternoon. They came to pit road to put rain tires on that machine. Kelly Collins didn't quite stop in time, though, in the Goodwrench Corvette. He spun coming up onto the banking, was able to collect the car and make a pit stop. Next time around, rain tires are now on that race car, and Collins remains at the wheel. The 3-car 9th overall right now and running 4th in GTS. Great battle for the lead. We've watched the Ferrari and the 2 Dyson machines dominate. Andy Wallace in the 16, David Brabham in the 12. They went at it hammer and tongs in the wet weather before Wallace was able to establish the lead in car number 16 in hour number 4. Now James Weaver is back at the throttle, and here is the Marcos GT car that we talked about. They're back on pit road for some tires and some other service work, fueling the car as we check our Kumho Tires race reset for you. James Weaver remains out in front. His average speed 103.1 miles an hour. Fastest lap in the drive, more than 125 miles an hour. And officially 13 of the 80 starters are out. That would leave 67 cars still in competition. Some cars behind pit wall getting some repair work done as the Marcos has dropped off the jacks. The Eurotech machine, they've taken that back trunk lid right off the car now and sent him back out into competition. The 24 was 9th overall at last report. There's that blue and white BMW with the V8 motor, the GT car number 54, running very strongly there. Terry Borchello driving that car right in.
Man, you're in the zone, Rick.
Watching the traffic. Watching the traffic. Didn't even realize you dropped in. Welcome.
Welcome. Thanks so much. Pleasure to be here.
What's the condition of the racetrack right now?
When I got out, I just was still going on slicks, and on the pit stop we've put rain tires on, but it was very slick, and especially we had...
As we take a look at the pit stop of car number 2, one of the Goodwrench Corvettes. Driver change. Let's go downstairs.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Chris Neifel has got out the car, and Frank Freon has got in. They've also changed the wet weather cars whilst they're putting...
We're just seeing that our wipers are working, and we have sort of a special foil on our windshield, and that prevents the main part from fogging up, and that's pretty important. You don't need to see much. I mean, you hear a lot and you know your way around, and anyway, you don't look too much right and left. You don't want to see what's going on. Then just keep your eyes straight and keep it going.
Hans, talk a little bit, because I know a lot of people are interested in this new M3 with the V8. And some of the question marks that raises, and we won't put you on the spot with that, but just talk about driving that car, the difference between the 6-cylinder car, because it must be a little bit different.
Yes, and now I would say it's even more the ultimate driving machine, and especially having now a V8 in the car, it's just that little more we need to have the head on the Porsches now. We didn't have this power going off the corners. We have a lot of more torque now in the car, which is pretty good. So we can keep the speed going off the corner onto the straightaway and stay with the Porsches, sometimes overtake them here, or looks on the inside of our car, and it helps a lot. But on the other hand, if you have more power, you have a bigger problem with the tires. You're going to work quicker to the rear tires. You use more gas, of course. So having more power doesn't mean everything.
Coming down pretty significantly here, and you can see as you go quicker through the tri-oval here, you see the speed now about 170 miles an hour through the tri-oval. Look at the water coming off the back of that car.
Is it possible to run up close to another car when the conditions are this wet and there's that much of a rooster tail?
It's possible, but you know, it becomes more and more difficult to see, especially when you're in one of the prototype cars, because you sit lower in those cars, and so and of course these Corvettes are very, very quick on the straightaway, not that much quicker. That is the Crawford, the number 27 car. That was the car that in the first hour actually did a gearbox change, a total transaxle change. They seem to be running reasonably well now, shown in 19th overall, so they are clawing their way back.
Kevin Doran's team going with that Crawford and the Judd combination. Brand new car built in North Carolina by Max Crawford, as we watch Kelly Collins to the outside of one of the field machines, one of John Field's cars. Collins doing a nice job through the infield road course. That car seems to have a little bit of an advantage over some of the prototype machines through the infield.
Well, at times, you know, at times you're better off with, you know, of course, the prototypes, because they generate so much downforce. The bodies generate downforce, which makes them stick to the racetrack. But that only really happens above 80, 90, 100 miles an hour in any kind of significant way. Once they get into the infield, they're actually quite compromised in terms of what we call mechanical.
Racetrack that's just happened moments ago. Car number 65, one of the Porsches, getting into a little skirmish with Jurgen Lawrence driving that blue machine there. One of the prototypes stopping on the track as well. This heading toward the Rodriguez turn, and the yellow flag waving in that part of the course. You see the field funneling by to get around that car safely. And we'll show it to you in just a moment exactly what happened. Looks like the 48 car of Shane Lewis, Tony Seller in that car too. A little contact as the cars got together coming toward that 180-degree right-hand bend, and the Porsche sliding off the track backwards. Well, 65.
And it looks like all that kind of started before we got there. There's Shane Lewis in that pill beam. This is one of the SR2 cars, and you can see that right front suspension. It looks like it's kind of pushed back into the bodywork, into the tub of the car, and so I have a feeling that car is not going anywhere, and this is going to be a full course yellow. That car looks like it's repairable, but it's going to take quite a bit of work to fix it.
Yellow flag being shown from the flag stand as well, so the Aspen Knolls pill beam will indeed have to be removed on the hook, so the safety car is out of Corvette. The 3 with Kelly Collins on board. The crew had to come down and rescue him. He came to a stop at the head of pit road. They pushed the car now down to the pit stall downstairs to Alan DeCatney.
Yes, that's right. They pushed it down. I'm not quite sure why they had to push it, but they're fueling it. They're changing the tires. Andy Pilgrim has got into the car. He's now being helped with his seatbelt. I wonder why they had to push it down. I didn't see them working on it. It could just have been fuel starvation or something minor like that. Incidentally, I noticed on these Corvettes that they're fitting a different type of wet weather rear tire to the front tire. I went and stuck my old thumbnail in to feel the rubber too, and it's really for a wet tire. These Corvettes run a hard rubber. When I put my thumb into the Ricci Ferrari wet weathers, they're quite soft in comparison. Of course, if you get a Formula 1 wet tire, it's like a sponge. Actually, meanwhile, the Ricci Ferrari's come into the pits and changed its tires and gone out, just like that. The vet seems to be firing up all right. Sounds okay to me. Yeah, it must have been a vapor lock or minor fuel starvation, or he didn't put the reserve pump on or something like that. But it'll be interesting to see if they make a pit stop a little earlier this time than last time to compensate.
So they might have just tried to stretch it a little bit there, or they might be in some kind of fuel system trouble.
As we take a look at the rain continuing to fall here, let's head back downstairs and find out a little more about the situation with that 3 team. We'll get to that in just a moment as we watch Andy Pilgrim working his way up on the...
For our race, I've got Kelly Collins with me. What a stint you had. I mean, there was a spin there. You had to change onto wets and then push the darn thing down the pit road. Now, what was all that about?
How's that? It's like a mini movie. I mean, the other car, they got priority in the pit, so I went one extra lap and it started to downpour, and I hit one of the painted lines coming onto the banking. Around it went. As far as the fuel goes, the fuel alarm came on halfway down pit entry. I radioed. I tried to make the corner. I couldn't slow down enough. I would have made the pit entry. And then they said short shift it, and usually we can go a full lap. I was running about 3,500, 4,000 RPMs. All of a sudden, it just quit out going into the chicane, so I just dodged the chicane real fast, and it was dying, so I shut it off and climbed out of the car while it was rolling, so I'd run alongside. And kept pushing, and I don't know what it is, Alan. That thing does not want to push. Finally, I got to where it stopped, and then I'm behind it, and I pushed, and I just made it to the corner of the wall here. I told the guys they're pushing, but I guess half of them didn't hear it. I'm pretty whooped right now. Trying to push that thing in wet shoes is just
Well, you're a fit man, and luckily it didn't happen as you went past the pits. It happened as you were coming into them as well.
I know, it's crazy. It was running out of gas the whole time. Normally, we just know now we can't wait till our light comes on. We just got to come in when the fuel use says half a gallon left. We're not going to chance it anymore.
Well, you revised the fuel system. That's a lesson you learned, and it hasn't cost you anything. So I think from now on, you're going to be fine.
I don't think it costs us that much because the yellowness is coming out. I don't know.
Hey, what about the spin, by the way? I mean, you said you got onto the white line because that's notoriously slippery, the paint, isn't it?
What there is there's some yellow lines down below that you kind of go through, and then there's a white line at the top. What I did is I got a little twitchy coming off the corner, so I let the wheel out, and I went up high to the wall, and I hit one of the white lines that are up there, and it just went, came out instantly. And once you're aquaplaning, you're pretty much a potted plant, you know? I'm just along for the ride.
Well, you've been had a lucky stint then, basically. Isn't that really what motor racing's all about? Sometimes you're the bug and sometimes you're the windscreen, and this time you were the windscreen.
Oh, speaking of the windscreen, the windshield wiper isn't working anymore. It loses its juice, so we got to shut it off intermittently. It sticks down, so only when I'm in traffic do I run it. Otherwise, I just deal with it. Close one eye, you know?
Well, considering this is the first race of the year, in fact, I mean, there's a few little minor snags, but the car sounds great, and it looks great too. So, I mean, there's no reason why it shouldn't be there at the end.
The infield section a moment ago. Looks as though it's drying out just a little more. Alan DeCadney, you were talking to Kelly Collins down there on pit road, that how tough it is with the painted lines on the racetrack. It looks like things are starting to dry out now.
It's starting to dry out, but don't forget the track is still wet. And I remember when I was a kid and I did my first wet weather race, they all told me keep off the white lines, because where that thick white paint goes down over the tarmac, there is no grip. So if you're hung in a corner there in a turn and you've got a centrifugal force on the outside tires, you don't want that to take place on a white line because you don't get any grip. So that's exactly what Kelly found out. And hey, he had a stroke of good luck, and let's face it, you certainly need that in motor racing. You have a spin, you can clout the wall or chew up the grass or whatever. So in fact, it all worked out very well for him. He won't be going over any white lines again, I can tell you.
Well, Alan, it's interesting because we're looking right now in the camera. There's a new yellow line that actually leads down into turn one. Very thick line that you have to cross over. And that would actually, believe it or not, because you're hard under braking there, that would actually be enough of a segment there to actually maybe get a little bit of lockup and lose a bit of traction as you enter turn one. Or Kelly was coming back out onto the banking and got up onto that white line. So certainly a big factor here on this racetrack.
Upset the car, and as we showed on the replay a couple of times, he did a great job, I think, to keep the car off the wall.
Well, like I said, you know, when you're in those cars and you're spinning and you see the wall on the right and grass on the left, all you care about is the grass on the left.
I would comment on that.
Get to some safe territory and get the thing stopped as quickly as you can. Safety car still out on mission difficulty here at Daytona, and if we're having some technical problems, we apologize for that. We're working to get that squared away. We understand that we are back and you're able to see us and hear us, and that's wonderful news as we watch the 16 with James Weaver up onto the Speedway, and he is the race leader. And we are getting ready to resume green flag racing here in just a short bit. We understand the green is reappearing, so the safety car is in and we're back going once again. Hurley Haywood's at the wheel of the 38 car, the champion Porsche Lola, as we watch the leader Weaver down the back straightaway. Green has reappeared, safety car is in, and we're back under competitive conditions here at Daytona, working toward hour number 5 of action this afternoon.
Behind him, that right now piloted by Eric Van de Poel, so it's his first stint in the car.
Drop the green flag here at 1 o'clock Eastern time.
Yeah, James Weaver did lose the lead a little bit in his first stint, but he got it back up to the lead. But remember, the Ferrari came up to the lead, and there are some very well-matched cars here. This is Hurley Haywood. Of course, he is in this very unique car. It is a Porsche-powered Lola, and this is one of the cars we expect to be there at the end. No question about it.
First time out in Rolex competition for this machine, but Hurley Haywood's got a tremendous amount of experience here. In fact, 5 career victories in the Rolex 24. We're going to take a look back at one of his great runs.
The Porsche 91710 was truly one of the most remarkable cars that Porsche ever put together. Out the back there's a 5.4-litre flat 12 air-cooled engine, turbocharged, giving anything up to 1,200 horsepower. Hurley Haywood drove one of these cars in 1973, and I think Hurley definitely separated the men from the boys, didn't it?
It certainly did, Alan. When I was driving this car, I was 24 years old. Fear was not part of my vocabulary. And I felt no problems driving it. But when I drive it today, I really feel a great amount of respect for this car. It was difficult to drive back then, and it was difficult to drive today.
Would you say this is good practice for you for the actual 24-hour race to be out in this machine?
Well, no, probably not good practice for the 24-hour machine. This only ran in the short races and the Can-Am races. When we get ready to run this race, this is a really a race that's very disciplined. And our cars now that we drive are very sophisticated in comparison to this car. If you took this car and put it on the racetrack and you put a car that we drive today, the cars that we drive today would be much faster than this car. This car has got a lot of aerodynamic drag to it, and that's really one of the reasons why they had to have the terrific horsepower. Today, the cars are very slippery aerodynamically. We have all of our downforce created from underneath the car. The motors are very sophisticated, so it's a whole different ballgame.
Thoughts of Hurley Haywood reflecting on one of his earlier rides here. 5 career wins, and he could be in line for a 6th here this week.
Well, let me say this. I went to the drivers' meeting this morning, and he was one of only 2 drivers that was introduced to the entire cast of characters. There's the font. There you see those 5 wins. The last one coming in 1991, but boy, in the 70s, Hurley was pretty much unstoppable. Bob Wallace, of course, racing with us today. Andy Wallace and Butch Leitzinger both racing with us today. And this car that the champion team is running, this Porsche powered Lola, is a car that really has been built especially to run in this 24-hour race. It's not really well suited to much else but Daytona. They've done something like 15 or 20 days of testing here at Daytona. The car is very durable, very strong. It should be in contention for the overall win, no question about it.
Showing 3 laps down to the race leader right now, James Weaver in the 16 car, but as the night wears on, that advantage may start to accrue to the 38 car, and with Haywood, the 5 career wins, nobody knows this place better than Hurley Haywood. You were talking about drivers being introduced to the drivers meeting besides Hurley. Who else was there?
Well, of course, Jackie Stewart is the Grand Marshal of this event, so they introduced Jackie Stewart, and I will say that Mark Rapoff, who's the race director, did thank the Earnhardts for coming as well. So it was Hurley Haywood and the Earnhardts. Even if it stops raining, it'll take quite a bit of time for this racetrack to dry out. There's no question about it.
We're going to take you through the field and show you the different category leaders at this point in the Rolex 24. Leading the GTS category, one of the 2 factory Corvettes, the 2-car. Ron Fellows started the car. Chris Neifel. Frank Freon is now driving the number 2, and he's doing a nice job. That car is 6th overall right now, about 6 laps behind. And the class leader in Prototype 2, the 89, Bruno St. Jacques, is driving that car. They are 10th overall. That is a great run for that team.
Yeah, well, the next closest car sits 14th overall, and they are 3 laps down from this car. So right now, this car with a 3-lap lead, and that's where you want to be. Of course, a long way to go yet, but certainly they've had a fairly uneventful run up to this stage.
Very strong since the green came out several hours ago. This is the Porsche House team. It's a Nissan-powered Lola, and leading Prototype 2. And right there, one of the GT cars. That is the 2-car, the car that's currently leading in GTS. So good battle on the racetrack. They are not on the same lap at this point, but running together up onto the banking.
One of the drivers that was involved in the Cadillac program last year, we did have a email a little bit earlier from Mark Bellows from California asking, could you explain the whereabouts of the Cadillac program? Remember, those 2 Cadillacs debuted here a year ago at the Rolex 24, and they went on to Le Mans, and they had a difficult season, one of the 911s there, getting going after a quick spin. And the Cadillacs did have a difficult season, and that program does continue, and they are regrouping. They're redesigning the existing cars for another run at Le Mans this year, and then they will be doing a totally new car for next year. But they decided to focus on Le Mans, not come to Daytona and take the focus off the program to go to and try and win at Le Mans.
Very important program for General Motors, and obviously the cars were not up to pace last year, so they did need to do some reworking of them. We take a look at one of the GT entries too, the 09 car, one of the American GT cars in the field. And we're told that the 09 is leading in AGT right now. The 44 had been out in front earlier, but it is the 09 that has the advantage right now, minus the front bodywork on that car. The 09, they've been very strong competitors. That team has throughout much of the year last year in Grand Am competition. That's Craig Conway and Doug Goad and Rick McGarry and Eric Messley, the the X1R team machine, the Camaro there. Another spin in the infield, and everybody on the brakes to get out of the way of that incident. We take a look at the 78 car that's been in some trouble down there. Everybody gets by safely, no contact made. And we are back underway. No caution in that part of it. We saw this action coming down the super stretch to the infield. One of the Chamberlain Vipers spinning at the second turn, and then there was some pit stop activity. James Weaver bringing the 16 car in. Andy Wallace and James Weaver swapping seats. Weaver back into the car as Wallace climbs out, helping him with the seat belts there. The 16 is your race leader right now. Big drama on the racetrack. Kelly Collins had a fuel starvation problem with the number 3 Corvette. The car stopped on the course. You can see Collins trying to push it. The crew finally coming to his aid at the top of pit road. They get the car down on pit road. Driver change there. Kelly Pilgrim getting into the race car. And it has been raining for the last more than an hour here at Daytona right now. The track conditions still rather wet as we work on racing action. And one car has spun. The Team Seattle Porsche, the 66, has just gotten around in the infield, and we're on board in that machine. Driver getting the car refired, ready to come back up onto the racetrack. Hopefully, if he can get it back in gear. There they are on the grassy portion down in the infield there, and they will come back. We can see the headlights of the car down at the second loop just before you come back up onto the bank part of the racetrack. You can see some rain continuing to fall there in the infield lights as well. As we watch the 66, the driver bringing that car back up onto the racetrack. We told you a few moments ago that the car running third in the event, the Dyson number 20, was having some radio problems, some difficulty in contact. The tire shredded on the 66. Let's find out more. Alan DeCadene with the team manager.
Yes, I've got Pat Smith here. He's the crew chief for the Dyson Riley and Scott number 20. Pat, so you've lost radio contact with him. It's quite serious.
Yeah, the 20 car has no communication, but we were able to get Nick's attention. So now he knows that we don't have communication, so he'll be looking over here. And I have the girls keeping track of the laps. We know how many laps we can go on fuel, so it really shouldn't be a problem unless he gets stuck somewhere.
And you're running a pit board out the back anyway.
No, we're not.
You're not running a pit board?
Nobody runs pit boards anymore, do they?
Well, if their radio communications go down, they might have a backup. I don't know.
No, it shouldn't be a problem. We should be all right. It's just the rain got into the radio system somehow. 16 cars away.
But you're not really worried about it either way?
Not at all.
You've obviously got a great combination here with both these cars. I mean, this is a great way to go for you guys. They're first and third. I mean, it's all looking pretty good.
Yeah, it's good. That last caution, Nick got a lap back that Rob lost when he spun earlier. So we're in good shape. I mean, we've won this race for 6 laps down.
Et cetera, et cetera. So running a pit board is just a very good way to have that backup, just that extra little bit of safety. And I think that it's one of those situations where if the driver just misses that pit board and you run out of fuel, then you're really done.
Watching Hurley Haywood steer the 38 car for the champion Porsche team through the dogleg, through the chicane back there. 4th overall, 3 laps down to the leaders, though, right now. And, of course, reliability is the card that they're trying to play as they work by one of the BMW GT category machines up onto the banking. Hurley with 5 career wins. It's been 10 years, though, as we showed you a few moments ago, since Hurley Haywood has been to victory lane here at Daytona. It would be quite a story. He won in the 70s and again in the 90s, and if he could score a win here in the new millennium, it would be quite an
where the teams can put extra crew members to operate a pit board, and that is the champion board, I believe, that one that is all lit up there on the right. I believe you can see the 38 flashing there. Oh, that's on the that's painted on the enclosure there. Yeah. I'm looking at the board.
So obviously some people still do run pit boards.
Absolutely.
To the contrary.
Absolutely.
George Robinson's 74 car coming onto pit road. The visor up on the driver's helmet. Let's find out more from Alan DeCadene.
Yes, they've had a sort of serious problem with the judge. I say serious, they're putting the airbox back on. Jack Baldwin sitting in the car. As you can probably see, it's all going back together. It's pretty wet and messy in the back there. I would suspect, we were talking about water getting into the works. That's probably what's happened here. So water's crept into the electrics, possibly caused a misfire. It's the trouble, most people do all their testing in the dry, and it takes a good old downpour like we've had here to give you some wet weather running. And of course, if it's during the race and you find out for the first time that the lump in the back of your car doesn't like getting wet, starts to cough and splutter, hey, you just have to bring it into the pits and dry it out. But I think they're going to... Oh, no, actually, they're going to push it away. They're going to push it behind the wall. So whatever this car's got, and I'll try and find out in a minute what it has got, they certainly can't cure it in the pits.
see the crewman there inside the cockpit with Jack Baldwin, reaching up under the dash where the wiring would be to try to see if he can effect a repair quickly. But the 74 team will push their Riley and Scott machine behind pit wall, try to get that car reprimed pretty much in the dark. You're relying on your headlights, and quite a contrast there for these drivers.
Well, I think that is a big part of it, because when you come off the bank in and you dive down into the infield road course portion of this racetrack, it does get quite a bit darker, and your eyes have to constantly adjust. And in the old days, before the lighting, which old days being a couple of years ago, you didn't have to do that. You know, your eyes would get adjusted down to that lower level of light. It was a more consistent level of light. And I think now it's probably, and I haven't done it, but it's probably a little bit more difficult now in a way.
As we watch the traffic work that infield road course, the 0, the Porsche GT1. Let's find out more about things on pit road with Guy Hobbs.
We're just down in the 89, the Sports Racer 2 class leader. Greg Bootman's just brought the car in. Looks like you had a bit of a wobble coming down pit lane for a second there, and now you're telling me you couldn't see anything out of it.
Yeah, well, the pit is trying to radio to tell you to do certain things, reset the computer, undo your belts. You have to try and undo the radio, and you've only got 2 hands, so I let go of the steering wheel for a split second, and of course it came over. But I just did a double stint in the rain, so it's very tiring. It's very slick, but a lot of fun. I mean, it's just great. The P1 cars, when they come by you, the Ferrari especially, because it's so special to have a Ferrari out on the track, your whole world just rocks. Your vision goes blind. You can't see anything. And then hopefully it gets far enough ahead of you before the braking. You can see again. You know,
all right, well, even with that pit stop, you've retained the lead. Robert Julian's in the car now, and they've just made some adjustments to the lighting. And we're going to go round out to Alan Academy, who's right now with the 74 car.
Yes, in fact, I just had a little discussion with this gentleman you can see, I hope, the Judd engineer. What happened is that they knew something was going wrong with that Judd engine, and they were trying to signal to Jack Baldwin, waving frantically to try and get him in the pits, because their radio communications had gone dodgy as well. And I asked him what the matter is. Now, he's downloaded all the telemetry for that engine, and they're trying to work out what the matter is. The strange thing, it's quite complicated, the engine management system. At the moment, they don't know why that engine is misfiring. So we were right about that. It is misfiring. My thoughts are, as we said earlier, it's probably got a load of water into the works there, which it doesn't like. So it's just spitting and coughing. But if maybe Jack Baldwin had come in earlier, maybe that wouldn't have been the problem. We don't know yet, but as soon as I find out, I'll keep you posted. Meanwhile, the car has been pushed to behind the wall, as we said, and they're working on it. They'll probably change all the management system, the whole darn lot, try and get it back into the race, because otherwise, apart from the engine, it's quite healthy.
Team very strong at the head of the class here at the Rolex 24.
To the longest night in endurance racing.
Can you feel it coming in the air tonight? Oh Lord.
It will be 11 hours before the first streaks of dawn will appear. 11 hours in a strange world of artificial light.
And I've been waiting for this moment for all my life.
It's a crazy, disorienting funhouse of light, creating an artificial day just when your body is telling you to sleep. Those who are at their best at night will plot to steal the race, starting now.
Now is the time, if you're going to plot to steal the race, it's the time to start thinking in those terms, because night has descended here at Daytona International Speedway. Still pretty early, 20 after 6 Eastern time, but it is dark. It has been dark really for a couple of hours because we've had rain in the area, we've had a cloudy day, and now all the lights are on, and it is a night race.
And I'll tell you, night at Daytona seems to just go on forever. I mean, you know, we are in the winter months here, and it is at least 12 hours. And I see the safety car out on the racetrack, and I don't know what that is for. I see our scoring monitor showing a full course yellow. There is the safety car, so there's something going on out on the racetrack, but we just can't see it at this moment.
Indeed, full course caution for the 5th time part of the racetrack. It is down going into one of the corners. And there you see one of the prototype machines. Driver is okay getting out, but the bodywork shredded. He has wrecked hard indeed.
Yeah, that is a big accident. Driver is okay, as you say, Rick. And that is on the apron coming out of NASCAR Turn 4 just before the pit in. So that is a very fast part of the racetrack.
Wow.
We don't see any other cars. We see certainly no shortage of debris.
Look at that. The debris just is all the way down the entrance there. Now, years ago here at Daytona, we see a piece of bodywork apparently laying on the racetrack, or perhaps a piece of tire at the front part of the short chute there, right when you would be coming off the banking at the entrance to pit road. That whole paved section was put in years ago. There were some violent Winston Cup wrecks in that area. It was put there for safety reasons. Car number 6, one of the Lola Nissans in prototype 2. Travis Duder was driving that machine at the time. And Travis out of the car. He is okay. One of the track workers over to talk to him and walk him over to the ambulance. But there's not a lot left of that car.
Well, I'm really curious about this. You don't know, because we haven't seen any other damaged cars. There's no other cars there. I don't think he got to the inside wall, which would make you ask, did he get to the outside wall? Did he contact the outside wall and then slide inside? So there's a lot of pieces to this puzzle missing right now, no question about it.
You can see what appear to be skid marks coming across the asphalt there, so my guess is that he had hit further up the racetrack and came sliding down through at that point. Good news that Travis Duder is okay, but the car certainly will be done for the evening, and just a violent wreck. The car badly torn up, as you see there. Wow. Wild pile up. We'll try to find out more about what happened to the 6th car. Jeff Bucknam and Travis Duder, the teammates of that car, when we come back. As Travis was up and out of it quickly. And Jeremy, you had talked earlier in the broadcast about how safe these cars are. They're very stoutly built machines. Whatever the contact was, Travis unbuckled, climbed right out of that car without any problem.
Yeah, I mean, the bodywork from the rear of the car was completely missing. Of course, at the front, it was a little heaved up, and the left rear corner was completely gone. I think, Alan, do you have a little bit of insight into this incident?
Yes, just a little bit, because the 68 car pitted. There was quite a big old dent in the front right-hand side of the car, and the driver said that he was just trundling along, minding his own business, and somebody hit him and spun him out. Now, he doesn't quite know who or what it was, but it did happen kind of up there in that vicinity prior to entering the pits. So I've got the feeling that the 6th car may have got out of shape and clouted him, and/or tried to pass him and clouted him, or something like that. But the driver, God bless him, wasn't able to tell us precisely what had happened.
The 68, one of the GT cars, the Kevin Buckler, Dr. Steve Earle, and Jim McCallion machine on pit road we saw just a moment ago. The driver, Travis Duder, that we talked about in that prototype 2 machine, climbed out okay. He was a multiple SCCA national.
Hello, my name is Shane Lewis, and I'm the lead driver for the Aspen Knolls Pillbeam America Racing entry in the SRP 2 class in this year's 24-hour of Daytona. Now, what's different about this car from the SRP class, from the upper class, as it were, is that this lightweight chassis that was built in England has a V6 engine with about 385 horsepower. Now, that horsepower might not sound like a lot, but the chassis only weighs 1,600 pounds, which is about half of what a normal passenger car would weigh. So, like its big brother in the SRP class, which has about double the horsepower, we're a lot lighter weight. And to be honest with you, this car probably costs about half the money to run that it costs an SRP car. And I think you have just as much fun driving it. We've got a very good shot at winning this race. This car's got great history. It won the European Championship last year. So we're really looking forward to this event in this great chassis.
We more or less got it right. You think that other Lola was coming into the pits and clipped you, is that right?
Yeah, we came through the bus stop, and I stayed low, and he got up on the high side and went by me, and just as he went by me, about halfway through, he started coming down the hill, and I guess he thought he'd cleared me, and he just barely tapped my right front, and we were full bore in 6th gear. And we both did 360s. He did a 360 in front of me and then got air underneath him. And I actually went under his car when it was in the air and locked him up and kept it off the wall. But his thing, it just looked like it blew up.
But well, it could have been a whole lot worse than. I mean, he actually managed to get the whole thing, bring it to a halt and climb out of it. But if you guys had collided when he went over the top of you, that could have been disastrous.
Right, because when I looked up, I saw his helmet looking at me, so that's not very good.
No, but luckily you're both okay. You've got a big old flat on your tire there. Well, I guess you've got steering derangement then at the front.
No, it's all right. Just 360 at 160 or 65 miles an hour will do that to the tires. We just put some new ones on and keep going.
Well, that's what it's all about. Keep going. Hey, thank you, Steve.
Thanks.
Folding new tires on the 68. Steve Earle and his team expecting to come back into competition. Let's check out things in the Corvette camp. The Ron Fellows #2 machine. They just spun that car on cold tires, evidently. They're back up on the racetrack, up on the banking. We'll show it to you one more time as the 2 car comes up onto the racetrack. Frank Freon is your driver in that machine right now. Let's take a look here just a moment ago after the pit stop, and there's Frank looping the car.
And that is, of course,
indeed on the wet track.
Well, they will have come in. They will have been pointed by the pace car, and of course they're trying to catch up. And before they go green, they want to hustle to catch up again. So they will have stopped, put on fresh tires, which are cold, and now the job is to go out and hustle. And that's where you end up with a quick spin there, which looked fairly harmless, but nevertheless, it's something you certainly want to next straight away here. Trying to speed up and catch the field. The safety car should be headed in next time around. We should be ready for a restart here at Daytona in the Rolex 24. And we're told that some of the teams are going back to dry weather tires now, as the safety car is going to go in next time by. And I'll tell you what, from this onboard on this Corvette, you can still see in some areas it looks quite greasy, and I think that, you know, it is a calculated risk, and I understand it might have been the 27, the Crawford car, that is gone on to dry tires. So we're going to keep an eye on those guys. This is the Corvette. Now, the Corvette has caught this car. You cannot pass this car because we're still under a full course yellow. Now they're catching the back end of the field as they come into the tri-oval here. So mission accomplished. They've caught the back end of the field. There is the number 20 Dyson car. And that looks like EFR getting in. He throws. That's a seat insert there. So he takes that insert out. That's Nicholas Johnson's seat insert. They take that out. Now, why are they waiting until the end of this yellow to pit? Because they probably got pointed by the pace car. What the pace car will do is, in a big accident like that, as soon as they know they want to go yellow, they will send the pace car out. The first car they pick up is the first car they pick up. Doesn't matter who it is. Eventually, once everything's under control, they'll point everyone else by until they get to the leader. This car was probably in that group of cars. They've gone all the way around the back, joined the back of the field, essentially made up most of a lap, and now they pit at the end of the full course caution, and they go out and they've made up the better part of a lap.
The 20 car started fifth. Elliott Forbes Robinson took the first shift. He's back in the race car, and they're moving out to catch the field now and get ready for a restart next time by. Being shown third, being shown one lap down to the leaders as we get ready to go racing here at Daytona.
And a bit of an unusual situation here at Daytona. When they come off of these full course yellows, they do it right here, not at the start-finish line, but coming out of the infield road course out onto the banking. And those are the 2 leaders there, the Dyson, the number 16 car, and the Ferrari.
So we're back under green flag conditions. Safety car has gone in, and there you are. The Dyson 16 machine still out in front. James Weaver's still there. The Ferrari in second spot.
I think it's actually Butch Lightstinger in there, Rick.
Back in the car.
I think so. I just saw the black helmet. So Butch hasn't been in the car a whole bunch yet. Mostly it has been Andy Wallace and James Weaver. Yes, that is definitely Butch Lightstinger's helmet. So this could be an interesting fight. I haven't seen a good look at the Ferrari yet. Not sure who's in that car right now. It was Eric Van der Poel before this full course yellow.
The 16 stretching the advantage now as they come out of the banking toward the tri-oval here to put another lap on the board. The red Ferrari right there in second spot, the Risi machine.
And I talked to James Weaver today. He said the Goodyear tires in the wet, his words are mega, which means he likes them. And so maybe these guys feel like they have a real good tire in this wet weather Goodyear tire. Certainly, Weaver was leading the race in the wet without a big problem and actually pulling away from the Ferrari. So it'll be interesting to see how these 2 sort it out.
We're told it is still Eric Van der Poel driving the Ferrari, so he will try to track down now Butch Lightstinger, who's your leader. They go through slower traffic in the infield as Van der Poel right up on the back of the 16 car as they battle
the braking zone into turn 1. Van der Poel right up on Butch Lightstinger.
Lightstinger able to hold him off, though, in the 16 car. That car has dominated here so far. The 12 has led some laps as well, but the 16 team has certainly been the dominant machine here in the early couple of hours. Van der Vanderpool to the inside now as we see Leitzinger a little bit to the outside. Slower traffic in front of him there. And the 16 wiggling again. That's the second lap in a row, Jeremy. I've seen him wiggle in that part of the race.
It's very slick. This whole infield portion is very, very slick, and especially those two hairpins. The kink is actually pretty good in terms of grip. And remember what I said earlier. The faster these cars go, look at this. The faster these cars go, the more aerodynamic downforce they make and the better they stick. So the most compromised these cars ever are on these slow infield sections like right here. This is a very slow corner, probably a minimum speed of about 45 or 50 miles an hour for these cars, and they don't like going that slow.
Yeah, they're not made to run at that pace, certainly. Now back up onto the banking where it's fairly dry. These cars, these lead cars, we're told, are still on wet weather tires. The track is drying out. That's very hard on those tires, isn't it?
Well, right now, I think there's enough moisture on the track that these guys are doing okay. There are still some wet sections, and I think right now you can still see some misty spray coming off the back of those cars. So I think right now they're in reasonable shape. And as we understood it, the number 27 car, the Crawford Judd-powered car, went on to slick tires. And right now those guys are running lap times about 15 seconds a lap slower than these leaders. So that, at this point, probably not the right way to go.
Stay low when they hit the banks.
And you can see the Ferrari runs around the high side. So even if those Porsches are dueling, and you can run 3 wide on the banking, but you need to leave a lane open for the quicker cars to go around the outside. There's Eric Vanderpool there with his signature hat. He lives in San Diego. Very, very experienced in both sports cars and open-wheel cars. He has driven Formula One cars. Endurance racing, and we've had a couple emails about this. Endurance racing used to be about the car just surviving 24 hours of competition, or say 500 miles like Indianapolis. I mean, that was the reason for these events, was for these manufacturers to prove the durability of their vehicles. The bottom line is, you know, these cars are purpose-built racing cars, and they're designed to do this. And the way endurance racing has evolved in the last 10 years or so is that they have become pretty much outright sprint races, where you run the car as hard as you can, and if it breaks, and you fix it. But the bottom line is that if you take a group of 10 cars and they all run them as hard as they can, 1 or 2 of them are going to make it.
Yeah.
And it's the car that is the best prepared and the most reliable, but you can't really give up much in the way of speed. These guys are running pretty much as hard as they can.
Vanderpool certainly doing the job in the 12 car right now, just going by Leitzinger to take that lead, and he is stretching it out now, about 1.3 seconds the advantage at the moment as he works up onto the banking. He'll go by the Team Amick American GT Corvette. Lyndon Amick and his brother David leading quite a team of stars in that.
Look in there, that was all okay. Now I think they've found out where the problem is and where they've got to go to work on this car. In the meantime, they're cleaning the windshield. Remember, not too many people allowed over the wall. They're carefully counted before anyone else comes over and joins. And here it is, old reliable, the big hammer, bashing on that wheel arch, trying to get that problem solved. Must have had some kind of contact out on the track. The interesting thing, again, you can see here that they are running the Yokohama tires, but they're staying on these wet weather tires, not changing tires. Or the driver, just going to send him back out. And this car should be back up on its way again in a few minutes. Unless they are going to decide to work on that door as well. But it seems like a team discussion is going on. We'll try and get more for you on the 57 GT Porsche in the Porsche GT.
Machine still in competition as we're just about to the 1 quarter mark. Here's Vanderpool down the backstretch, diving inside a couple of his fellow prototype mates to get by them, and a spin for the 40 car on the backside of the racetrack on the infield portion as well. That's the Renato Bicciotto machine, the Porsches in GT.
Well done.
He'll get it pointed in the right direction. I'm glad I passed the first test of the night.
That was good. You just sailed right through that.
You learn that at professional announcer school. One of the things you have to be able to do.
They should do a school just for Daytona with the 300 drivers from all over the world.
I wouldn't want to take a written test. I can promise you that.
Well, this car now sitting on a lead of, I believe, a little over 2 seconds, 2.8 seconds. So Butch Leitzinger not falling back by much, and that can really ebb and flow with the traffic. You know, you run into one car and you lose a second or two, and then, you know, the guy you're racing runs into a car, you lose a second or two, and that's just the way it goes. And that is the nature of Daytona, no question about it. And so, you know, of course, politics always come into play on these things, and manufacturers will, you know, they will pursue certain events that are more important to them. Audi put a big effort on the Le Mans 24-hour race last year, and they went and won that race. Of course, the Orica team won here overall with the Vipers. That's the number 26 of Chris Hall there in one of the prototype 2 cars. That is NASCAR Turn 4. So this may, in fact, bring out a full course yellow. We don't know. They may just haul him in. So, you know, some of the cars are here, some of the cars are not here. Chrysler is working on a new program for Le Mans. Looks like this car may be coming into the pit lane. Yes, it is. There's Eric Van der Poel, our leader, coming into pit lane.
Van der Poel brings that car down onto pit road. We'll see what kind of service they're going to require there over the wall to put some fuel in that machine. Looks like they're going to leave the tires. They're checking tire wear, I would believe, there at the back.
Well, the ideal situation here for the driver is that the wet weather tires will easily go a couple of stints. So, and the major advantage to leaving them on is that they stay warm. You don't have to get them back up to temperature because they do run quite hot, the wet weather tires. So that is a real advantage for Van der Poel. He'll come in, put fuel in the car, go back out, have fairly warm tires on that car, and get back up to speed very quickly.
The steam rising through the vents on the front fenders of the car.
Well, some of that steam, some of that is smoke because the brakes run very, very hot. You can see a little bit of wheel spin there from Van der Poel. Very experienced in these Ferraris, Eric Van der Poel is. So a nice smooth pit stop, no driver change, no tire changes, just fuel, and the race leader back out onto the racetrack.
He's given up the lead for the moment, at least, to the 16 with Butch Leitzinger, but the pit stop causing that. It'll be interesting to see how quickly Van der Poel can catch back up to Butch and try to get the lead back here in the Rolex 24 at Daytona. Rolex 24 at Daytona, live on Speed Vision. We're with you flag to flag this year for the first time ever. Part of our endurance racing Grand Slam. I'm Rick Benjamin with Jeremy Dale, Guy Hobbs, and Alan DeCat there on pit road. Your leader once again is the 16 Butch Leitzinger for Rob Dyson's team. Got by Eric Van der Poel when Van der Poel had to bring the 12 onto the pit road just a short time ago for some fuel and a quick check of the tires as these teams continue to run wet weather tires at this point, even though the rain for all intents and purposes has slackened greatly, if not stopped there on the racetrack. The wet weather tires remain the choice for most of the lead teams. There is Van der Poel in the Ferrari, right now being shown 55 seconds behind in second, but he had been leading until that pit stop. And the battle between Ford and Ferrari, a common theme here at Daytona through many years of racing. The history goes all the way back to the 60s. Sam Posey explains.
Dan Gurney's Ford was on the pole, one of 6 Mark IIs that would challenge rival Ferrari, which had brought 2 brand new T4s and a reworked T3 to contest the 24-hour race. Another major player was Jim Hall's Chaparral team, which had brought a brand new high-wing 2F. It started from the outside of the front row in the hands of 1961 World Driving Champion Phil Hill. Hill pulled away to an early lead, leaving the Ferrari and Ford teams in his wake. But soon Hill was in the pits, describing how the car had hit loose gravel, slammed into the wall, and broken the suspension. The Fords began dropping out too, as an improperly forged transmission shaft would eventually give out in every one of the 6 entries. By midnight, the Ferraris were running 1, 2, 3. And over 12 hours later, that's the way they finished, with Chris Amon and Lorenzo Bandini taking the win. 1998 saw another Ferrari win as Gianpiero Moretti's Ferrari 333 ST was able to fend off the challenges of both Rob Dyson's Riley and Scott machines to take a dominating win. It was a wildly popular victory. Many of the teams came out into pit lane to salute the nearly 58-year-old Moretti, who had finally achieved his lifelong dream of winning the Rolex 24-hour at Daytona. Joined by co-drivers Mauro Baldi, Didier Case, and Arie Luyendyk, along with many other members of the team in victory lane afterwards, Moretti would announce his retirement. It was his final appearance at the Rolex and the last time a Ferrari has visited victory lane at Daytona.
A couple of years have elapsed since that win by the Momo team, but it could happen again here. Essentially the same car in the hands of the Risi squad. They've been very strong.
And you know what? It was a wildly popular victory for Giampiero Moretti. And it was really great to see it. The team was fantastic. The car was well prepared. This is Jack Baldwin not going very quickly, and I'm not sure why. We'll see if we can figure that out. This car actually, this car is now back out on the racetrack. Yeah. Of course, they were behind the wall, so he's getting back up to speed. So they've hopefully solved their problems. But yeah, that team, that win by Moretti, just a fantastic win. Of course, Didier Taze was on that team, and he is one of the connections to the Risi car running this weekend.
The 74 car, the 74 Hunting Ranch machine, had been behind the wall for, my guess is, a couple of hours almost, fixing problems with that Judd motor back there. They thought perhaps water had gotten into the electrics. Alan DeCadney, what was the final ruling on what had happened to that machine?
That's exactly what it was. We had a good call there. They had to take out the whole of the engine management system and replace it. And it didn't necessarily work as well as it should do the first time, but they fiddled around with it and they got it going. It took them a lot longer than they thought. They brought the car around here. It was still on wet weather tires from its previous outing. I'm not sure why, but they jacked it up and put slicks on it and then sent it out. And I felt the slicks. They were stone cold and hard as nails. So I think he'd be having a bit of a struggle out there.
Can get you now. The 16 car, the lead car, comes in. This car is on wet weather tires. The question is, will they go to slicks? It looks like, yes, they pulled out the slicks. So the Dyson team has made the decision to go to the slick tires. Butch Leitzinger will stay in that car. And those are sticker tires. They're not scrubbed tires, so they're brand new right out of the mold. And this is when those tires will be the most difficult going down pit lane, and that first lap out of the pit lane will be very, very difficult for Butch Leitzinger.
You can see how much moisture still is on pit lane, and as you were talking earlier, you want to run this race full out like a sprint event all the way, which will have to be patient here getting up onto the racetrack at speed.
And that's why Rob Dyson hires a guy like Butch Leitzinger, because he should get that job done.
Very smooth indeed as he comes up through the gearbox on pit road on those slick tires. As we had documented, most of the leaders staying with the rain tires. This is the first of the lead cars to come in and put slicks back on. And one of the American GT machines, Hens Hauser's Olds Cutlass, the 96, he's found the guardrail over in the infield, going off the course and down through the grass and finding the Armco. We'll show it to you one more time. This is coming into the Rodriguez hairpin, and the car just turns to the left there and goes right into the wall.
Yeah, he just gets it a little cockeyed in the braking zone and slides along the guardrail for a few feet and then just gets into the tires. So they ought to be able to pull that out. This is the Scott Schubach car, the number 4 car, the Lola. And then we've got another car off the racetrack.
Another spinner.
And, well, there you go. That is Butch Leitzinger on the slick tires. So that says a lot right there.
He's gone out on slicks.
The slick tires causing Butch to have problems. We were speculating as to whether that was the right choice or not. We'll show it to you once again. Here is Leitzinger in the infield. Just gets away from him.
And these cars, they have so much power, so much torque. It just, all you have to do, especially on cold tires with a slick racetrack, is touch the throttle. Very, very tricky. And you can see Butch, he just touches the throttle and around it goes and doesn't really even have much time to get any steering correction into the car.
Hard on the brakes to try to keep the car from hitting anything. He was successful in that. Looks like the 3 car, and Dale Earnhardt Jr. is climbing in for his first stint behind the wheel. So it's nighttime, but it's dried out a little bit, and this may work out very fine for this team. This may be exactly what they wanted for Dale Jr.'s first tour in the car.
Well, he did say that track conditions would improve by the time he got out on the racetrack. So
been watching the Weather Channel.
Been watching the Weather Channel. So yeah, this is a good opportunity for him, and I'm sure that they will put slick tires on the car, because if they don't, unless it starts raining again, they'll be back in 10 or 12 laps to put slicks on it. And Alan, I think you're there. You can update us.
Yeah, they have actually put slicks on this car. They took those steaming wets off it, and he's got fresh slicks on there. He's brewed it up, and off he goes. Actually, you're quite right, you see. His first baptism of fire won't take place in the heavy rain. He takes it easy, warms those cold old tires up for a lap or two, then he'll be fine.
You're on board with Dale Earnhardt Jr. down pit road here at Daytona. Andy Billum talking to the crew, letting them know how the car was performing when he came in to hand the car over to Dale Jr. for the first time tonight. Earnhardt Jr. to the end of the pit exit. inside of turn 1.
And I guarantee you he's going to take it pretty easy here. And that's fine. And you can see the flashing lights up here are the safety crews hauling that AGT car out of the tire wall right there. And it'll probably take Junior about, there he goes.
Oh, he goes around. There he goes.
Dale will stop the car.
No, I think he stalled it now. I think he stalled it. But these cars will refire quite easily. They're designed to do that. So he does get a bit of a baptism by fire, but so far, no harm, no foul. And like I said, he needs to just tiptoe through this infield road course section, and then he'll get up on the banking, he'll build some tire temperature, and things will get a lot more comfortable.
Take one more look at it. Dale Earnhardt Jr. just climbing into that race car, and there it is. Back end goes around as he comes through the hairpin.
And I'll tell you this, Rick. You know, Dale Earnhardt Jr. should not feel bad about this, because 2 laps ago we saw one of the best guys in the sports car racing business, Butch Leitzinger, spin on cold tires, on the slicks, on the wet racetrack, and you know, that is not surprising.
Let's go downstairs, down to Cagney.
Yeah, I'm down here. Actually, I can see Andy Pilgrim. He's just having a word with his team crew. Andy, have you got a minute to talk to us? The conditions on the wet weather tires weren't too bad then.
No, the wet weather tire was still okay. We've now got basically a slick track. There's just 2 or 3 places that are a little bit damp. Coming back onto the NASCAR where it puddles up. That's it. Basically, you need to be on slicks. I was keeping up with the guys on the slicks with the rains, but they wanted to get Dale in and, you know, just get him in the car.
Well, he just had a very minor spin, which can happen to anybody, of course. I'm saying he's just had a minor spin, which can happen to anybody, because with those cold old slicks on, as long as he tunnels down and gets them warm, he should be okay.
As long as he stays on line. I think all he was doing was going around the outside of the first horseshoe there, and it's still wet. It just caught him out.
But the car sounds great. I mean, it's purring along just as you wanted it to, isn't it?
So far, so good. No problems at all.
Good. Thank you.
But that team suffering some additional problems. We're told that Dale Earnhardt Jr. has perhaps gone around a second time. Let's take a look and show it to you one more time. There he is again, this time a right-hand turn. Make that a left-hand turn and going around completely, and just getting out of the way, some traffic going by. Much closer call for him there. We'll show it to you from another angle.
Yeah, well, and you can see that those tires, the racetrack is dry enough that as he spins the car, there's smoke coming off those tires. So that says a lot about the state of the racetrack right now. And let's go down to Dave Burns, who has joined our coverage. Dave.
Thanks, Jeremy. The number 20 is in now. The 16 Dyson car just went out on slicks, and now the 20 will do the same thing. No driver change, and just fueling the car and putting slick tires on at this point. The rain's coming off, steaming from the water on the track, but they've decided, I just talked to Pat Smith, they decided that dries are the answer right now, and he'll skate back out of here.
EFR stays in the seat of the 20, throws the visor down and slowly comes up to speed in that car. Now he's seen his teammate Butch Leitzinger loop a car on slicks in this situation. He saw Dale Earnhardt Jr. do it just a moment ago. So you know Elliott will take his time.
Well, let's watch Elliott Forbes Robinson leave the pit lane here, because that's what he's doing. He's heading up to that Rodriguez hairpin, which is where Earnhardt spun, which is where Leitzinger spun. So EFR could score some bonus points here if he can keep it pointed in the right direction.
Rolex 24-hour race here at Daytona. The number 12, BC Ferrari's just made a pit stop. They pulled off the wet weather tires and they put on slicks. However, unlike the other cars fitting slicks, these slicks have already been bedded in practice. So they've got a definite advantage. When you fit a brand new slick, it's super slippery, as we've already seen with Dale Earnhardt Jr. and others suffering. I would expect this Ferrari to warm these cars up pretty quickly because they're already bedded.
Racing we would call scuffs going on that car.
Yeah, scuffs or scrubs, and these guys pitted very quickly, because once Butch Leitzinger got up to speed, he was catching his Ferrari. There you go.
Oh boy. Van der Poel scoots to the outside, backs the car off the corner. He'll get it pointed in the right direction quickly. Didn't even stall it. Almost gets clipped, though, as he comes around. Some of the GT cars trying to get by the 12, and they do successfully.
And he didn't even make it to the exit of the corner.
Wow.
He spun it before he even got into the corner. But Leitzinger was catching him at about 11 seconds a lap. This is the number 38 champion, Lola Porsche, now.
Driver
You
change,
can see
and slicks going on. Let's find out more. Dave Burns downstairs.
Yeah, Rick, Hurley Haywood is going to step out now, and Sasha Maassen is going to get in running fourth. They decide to pull it in, put the slick tires on, and otherwise routine. A lot of cleaning going on, of course. Mirrors, headlamps, everything to try to give drivers the best visibility that they can get around here. Maassen now getting belted in. Haywood had a perfect stop. He hit his marks perfectly, had the belts already undone. He also had his driver's suit undone, so must be plenty warm out there right now.
Maassen stitching up the belts. He'll drop the visor and go here momentarily.
Sasha Maassen, of course, is one of the young European drivers that ran last year in one of Dick Barber's 911 Porsches. Very, very quick, very young, you know, quite brave. No question about that. So, and this is his, I believe, maybe his first stint in the car. So it'll be interesting to see what kind of lap times he does. Right now, they are shown a few laps down. 4 laps down to the leaders, but this car continues to soldier around.
Maassen getting his shot behind the wheel here, and a team that's got a lot of veteran skill. He would be the young gun in this group.
No question. Of course, Bob Wallach, you know, Hurley Haywood and Bob Wallach and Dorsey Schrader collectively probably, what, 120 years of racing experience?
Maassen certainly the newcomer among that group, but he'll be very quick in that car, I'm sure, and we'll see just how quick he can be when he gets up to speed here. And just some of the highlights of activity during hour 6. Trouble with a 74 Honey Ranch machine. Jack Baldwin had to take the car behind the wall. Trouble with the electrics in that Judd motor. They're back on the racetrack. Driver change for the leader in Prototype 2. Bruno St. Jacques taking over, and he has continued to keep that car out in front as we hit nightfall and the lights are on. Hard Wreck, the number 6 car in Prototype 2. The driver, Travis Duder, flipped that car, got it airborne. He's okay. You see him climbing out after contact with one of the GT machines. Troubles for both of the Corvettes. Both drivers in the 2 and the 3 spending time spinning off the racetrack as we've had wet and dry conditions. Speaking of trouble, tires shredded on the 57 car in GT. Eric Van der Poel was the star of that hour. He had the 12 car, the Ricci Ferrari, out in front for much of it. They now sit second as we are seeing the racetrack dry out just a bit here at Daytona. Most of the leaders have gone back to slick tires.
Is able to deal with it. A lot of other drivers probably would have said, you know what, I'm going to pit. I'm going to either give the car up or I'm going to change the windscreen back to my windscreen or whatever. But, you know, he toughs it out for that 3rd stint. And right now they are, I think they're probably where they expected to be, which is right now in the top 4, you know, a few laps down. And, you know, either of these Dyson cars or this Ferrari hits any trouble, they are right there.
The leader is the 16 machine. It's been Butch Leitzinger's to drive the last several stints and the last several laps, and Leitzinger doing a great job keeping that car out in front, working by the 31, one of the top contenders in GT. 13th overall for the Mike Fitzgerald Randy Post machine. In fact, the 31 you saw there, they still are the GT leaders at this point as we watch the 16 working by Kenny Buff's American GT car, the 11, flashing by on the inside of another car working through the horseshoe. Part of the road course. Leaders have put more than 700 miles on the board here at Daytona. 186 laps for the lead car, the 16 machine right now. In the overnight hours here at Daytona.
And you guys kicked the show off, and obviously a lot of developments have unfolded since, Sam, not the least of which is nightfall here and rain. That package, interesting.
Well, we're just a quarter of the way through the race right now, Greg, and of course we've got the whole night, which is almost 12 hours looming up ahead of us. This partially artificially lit situation, which is absolutely beautiful sitting here in the booth. I've got to tell you, I've never seen anything like it. The magic of the silver light off Lake Lloyd and the lights on the Ferraris, you see it making its way around. Look at the iridescence of the green. I mean, it's intoxicating, frankly, to be here right now at Daytona.
And a terrific race between these 2 lead cars, the Ferrari and the Dyson 16 car. We had a big change just a few moments ago when they all went back to slick tires, and we saw them all spinning down on the infield there. Absolutely as slick as Well, very slick indeed.
Very slick. Very slick.
And of course, it takes them getting up on the banking before they can get some heat in those tyres. So a very fascinating race between the Ferrari and the Dyson. Riley and Scott here with their phalanx of top drivers in both cars.
I think we're seeing something developing here, and it's basically Eric Vanderpool is on an absolute mission, because the Ferrari team, I think, they made a little strategy error. They waited too long to make the change to slick. Leitzinger, after he stopped, once he got it warmed up and after his little spin, started closing on them at an immense pace. And so by the time they got in, made the change, Vanderpool back out. He had a quick spin. He continued. But right now, Butch Leitzinger is closing, continues to close on that Ferrari. And if he catches him, that's going to put them another lap down. And that's not one you could make up by getting in and out of the pit strategy. I mean, that'll put them 2 laps down officially.
No, you're absolutely right. This is very exciting stuff. And you say, well, gee whiz, with 3/4 of the race still to go, how much does it really matter? It does matter, because the rain appears to be past us. I look at the weather report. It's going to clear steadily from now on. The ground is going to be harder to make up. I was taught in art school that it's the edges that matter, and the edges of when it dries and gets wet again, that's when things happen big, and that's behind us now. And I think you wouldn't want to be in second place.
Speed Vision's coverage of the Rolex 24 at
Daytona, and when you think of Daytona, sure, you think of Earnhardt's, but you also think of Petty's, and there is Kyle Petty with Calvin Fish, who's back. Calvin?
Kyle, when you took on this deal, if you'd known it had been raining, darkness, would you want to be here?
I'm going to be honest and say no. When I went to San Francisco and talked to Leo Hendry about doing this, he's out there in the car right now riding around, and it was raining out there. That should have been a sign for me. If it was raining in San Francisco, it's going to rain here too.
I'm sure you've learned a lot. Are you going to be able to take any of this and put it to your road racing tracks in the Cup car?
You know, I would like to think so, especially the wet weather stuff. You know, Roger Hawley, who's the crew chief here and who runs everything, he asked me out there when I was riding earlier, he said, do you think we ought to switch to wet weather tires? I said, Roger, I'm going to be honest, ask somebody on pit road. I've never been in the rain before. So hopefully, you know, Winston Cups, they've talked about it a lot. And if they ever go to it, maybe Dale Earnhardt Jr. and those guys, we'll have a leg up on some people.
Yeah, it's great to see you out there, and we look forward to seeing you back in the car.
Thank you, sir. Having a great time.
He is, of course, an awesome musician, Kyle.
Indeed. By the way, they are running 24th overall, 8th in class, and with a lot of time left to go, the pace that they're working on could be a very effective one here. Problem is, you got a lot of bulletproof Porsche GT3Rs that are running out there as well, but pretty good drivers, including a gentleman who is fairly well associated in the past with Ferrari, Gianluigi Pittoni.
Yes, indeed.
One of the drivers.
You know, at the outset of the show, we had the Porsche track map. You think about it, this really is the Porsche track. There's so many 911s that have distinguished themselves around here, starting with the Peter Gregg days and working all the way through the 80s and so forth with variations of the 911.
There's 3 of them right there.
Yeah, exactly. They're just made for this.
Also, the scary thing about these 24-hour races, if this was a 50-lap race, we'd be on about lap 10 at the moment. So we've got a long way to go in this baby yet. And of course, it's those long hauls where the Porsches generally seem to just do so well.
One of our SRP2 entries is off. A little bit outside of the pavement there, running a little bit wide.
Not where it is supposed to be.
That's the Team Sweden entry of Stanley Dickens. And they've run wide. He's actually shut it down, so looks like there may be something a little bit more involved here than just simply running off track.
Whole car for the race.
Yeah.
Their race has not gone as well as it might have done. These guys won a race in South Africa with this car just a couple of months ago. The car came straight here from South Africa, so they were hoping for a repeat of that success, but it doesn't look like they're going to be as successful here.
Up front, there's your leader, number 16, Butch Leitzinger, and the Dyson Racing are O'Reilly and Scott Ford. Speaking about that SRP2 class, I mean, last year there were 2, 3, 4 cars that came out, a couple of races, a couple other cars would come out, but it's a class that has really taken hold here. A lot of entries here, a lot of professed entry for the remainder of the season, so good opportunity there. And we saw Shane Lewis a little bit earlier in the show give a little bit of a tour of one of these cars, and he said for about half the bang of the buck, you get just about as much fun as driving one of these major SRP class cars.
Box issue, and the team are trying to get the officials to tow the car back so they can effect some repairs. They're not going to go out on the field and try and fix it, so pretty major problem on the transmission, and that could be the weak link on that Lola. I spoke to Nick Jordan, who's behind the scenes there with the Lola organization, and he said with the gearbox that everyone's running has very thin gears, it's not really been proven over a number of hours, so they were concerned about it going into this 24 hours.
And yeah, fabulous race and very, very fast car and good drivers. I mean, my teammates were also very good. So it was a very nice experience, of course. Yeah, it was an incredible machine. You know, we had ground effect on those cars, so it was very fast, very high corner speeds. And we had also lots of horsepower of, you know, I think we had almost 900 or something in the Mercedes in the qualification. But also in the race it was running very strong, especially in the night. I drove the same engine 91 in the new car, but the difference that was a completely different car. But also by that time we had carbon brakes on it, and the weight was I think over a ton, over 1,000 kilos. Still, with all that weight, we were able to brake very late with it and handle it, you know, like almost like a Formula car. It was really, really good.
Holding, David. Butch Leitzinger has already helped Andy Wallace strap in. Wallace tells me he will go for a double stint. I asked him if there were any characteristics of the 16 that the drivers have been talking about that either have him curious or have him questioning. And he said no, about the only thing is that layer of stuff between the tires and the pavement in some cases, and that's mud. And nobody can track in that.
Well, look at how slippery it is, David, in the pits there. Of course, Stanley Dickens drove for Mercedes in the golden age there when they were just coming back into racing. They did such a beautiful job. Unfortunately, the ground effect the last couple of years has been an aero effect. Yeah. We well know they've had some real problems. We hope to see them back very soon.
And it's the only one to sort of escape. And it's here this weekend and was in a race yesterday afternoon for historic cars.
Ferrari's in, Cal. And Eric Vanderpool, who's done a tremendous job out there, is handing it over to Ralph Kennels. Kellner's a bit of a problem on the front end. The team are going to work here. I'm not sure what the concern is. I think they may be cleaning out the radiator ducts, possibly. They're going to work on both sides of the car. The front nose came off. And yes, there's some kind of grill they're pulling out, trying to get airflow. They're also changing the steering wheel, it looks like. Something going on inside the cockpit as well. Cleaned out the grills. They're comfortable with that. They're putting a headrest in behind Ralph. A little different in stature between the drivers. Nose is being clipped back on, but this is a real battle out there right now with the Ferrari and the Riley and Scott of Dyson. Should be a classic 24-hour.
Boy, amazing how quick they get that whole thing switched and changed.
Yeah, but I hope that the spin, you were just mentioning it, Greg, that happened early in that stint with Vanderpool, when he was off on the grass, that they didn't get grass in the radiator and they haven't been overheating this whole time. Now, it's pretty cool out there. The ambient is cool. It's in the low 50s now.
I think it was just a little bit of bad luck. I mean, everybody else that spun, including Leitzinger, they spun on the pavement, kept it going, and drove off. When he pulled on, he had to go through the grass, and that may have been the problem. He's out. We're going to take a break. An immense distance here in this event. How far? Well, to give you a little idea, we're going to show you a map of the United States. And if we were behind the wheel of Butch Leitzinger's machine, when you think about going the distance, we could have gone now from Daytona to New Orleans, over 716 miles in just a tick over 7 hours. That's pretty amazing stuff here. That's a tremendous pace that we're running here.
And just thinking about being in New Orleans, that car has come to a stop, and the driver is demanding Cajun food.
That's exactly what it is. Let's go down to Dave.
Elliot Forbes Robinson has stepped out already. Rob Dyson has hopped in. He told me he's only going to do a single stint. He'll leave the doubles to those young guys, but I think EFR might be in that category too. They put the little windscreen on there for Rob, the special one fitted just for him. And now they're discussing real quick. They're taking a quick word there while EFR helps Rob get strapped into the 20 car here. They're running third overall. gave up that position to come down here on pit road. Pit stop now, just over 40 seconds. Fuel is in, tires are on. Again, slicks. The only wet portion of the racetrack is here on pit road, as Dyson now tenderly takes the 20 back on the track.
Well, one of our emails was a question about the 20 when it came down pit road. The questioner says, you can see Pappas removing his belts coming down pit road. Considering the safety concerns, isn't there some type of rule that he should stop before unhooking? Go Earnhardt. Well, the fact is they always do, in fact, undo their belts to make it easier for the next guy.
Down here, Eric, it looked like an amazing stint you had there, a triple and a great battle with the Dyson car out there. Did you have some fun?
Yeah, it was nice. We had a lot of different conditions. We had rain, medium, rain tires on dry, and slicks on rain. It was quite difficult, but that's okay. We did stay on the track, and I'm happy. It's okay. For the moment, we lost a little bit, but it's okay.
When you pitted, they had to take the nose off and go to the radiator grills. Did the engine overheat at all?
Yes, we had one stop too much because we cover a little bit too much the front. Then we had to come back, and at the end, with all the dust and everything, we changed the front just to get the radiator completely clean. No, but basically the car is perfect. Everything works perfectly for the moment.
Last year, you really struggled in a straight line with the Ferrari. They've given you a little bigger restrictor, and you're running low downforce trim, and you seem to have the edge on the straightaways this year.
Yeah, it's good to pass everybody in the straight sometimes. Of course, in the infield, we are not competitive at the Dyson, but I could see at the end of my stint, I was pulling away a little bit. It means we are quite competitive.
They're now going to full slicks all the way around track. It's completely dry, of course. Kelly should be able to really stomp on the gas now, try and make up some ground. They've lost a couple of laps over the number 2 car, so they've got some ground to make up in this, and I see a crack in the windshield, which is not that abnormal on these endurance races. When you get to about the halfway point, they really start to take some abuse, and the fuel is in, tires are changed, and once again that driver change taking a little bit longer. We talked about how the Corvette is getting the fuel in much more efficiently. Kelly stalls it momentarily, wheel spins out of his pit.
Notice the way he hangs the steering wheel up there in the upper right of the cockpit while the driver change is going on. That's something kind of a neat touch.
Well, it makes it obviously easier for the drivers to get in and out, but also with all the cabling that's attached to those steering wheels with the radio buttons and all that, get it up and out of the way so they're not hooking it on their feet, because that'll kill you.
Look at that eerie effect. The lights almost looking like a dome out over.
You can also see how gloomy that windshield is at this stage.
Yeah.
In another 1,000 miles, that windscreen is going to be really pitted and most unpleasant to look through, especially if it's raining again later on.
Look at that. It looks like a video game, doesn't it?
Oh, the effect here, as you described it earlier with the lighting, on the way it's working. And one thing that it's kind of tough to really pick up on, but over by the chicane area, a lot of smoke from campfires getting up into the lights as well. It
settles down to Calvin.
Okay, we're in the Corvette pit. Little Lee has just jumped out. Baptism of fire, slick tires, nighttime, cool, and wet. What's that combination like?
Well, when I went out there, the car it was a little slick. I spun out a couple times trying to get going, but the track's dried up a lot, and it's really gotten quick. It's down to the 153s, and not like we were in practice. So maybe we can get buckled down here and catch up.
Seems like you're really starting to get in a rhythm there. Were you trying to stay in for another stint? What were the team saying to you?
I asked them if I could do a double, but they said later on, man, save your straight. So I'm ready when they are.
Those early laps must have been unbelievable. I mean, it's like being on ice when you're out there on slicks in a wet track.
Yeah, I have zero experience in the wet. I've never driven on it, so I was just out there learning. But the track dried pretty quick, and I got pretty comfortable and fell into a good rhythm, I feel like.
All right, nice job out there.
Thanks a lot.
Well, they're running 9th overall, 4th in
Titusville, Florida says, is Guy Hobbs any relationship to David Hobbs? There's only one answer to that. Yes.
Care to expand on that just a little bit?
I found him wandering around one night, so we adopted him. Yes, he is a Hobbs.
You can tell that the minute you spend a little time with him, I would submit as well. Ooh, look at how close that was right there. One of those SRP2 cars getting very close to the number 56 machine. That was the car that had the quick moment down there. Back and underway, obviously got away with it. No damage to the car, and it continues on. But that was actually down in the entrance to turn 1. And, of course, if you get in there just a little bit too hot, you tend to get away from him. I mean, you're coming from the fastest section of track down into that tight left-hander, and it snuck away from him, back and underway. And it certainly had some pretty immense moments. Let's go back and take a look at what happened for that car. The saga of Habatha Racing. Right here, watch him as he ducks down the inside. This is, of course, during the Rolex 24 last year. Coming up onto the banking here, they had a pretty good weekend. Obviously, made the podium, celebrating very heavily indeed.
Finished 8th overall.
Had a great race.
Performance.
However, then they moved on to Le Mans. Things not so good. If you were with us for our live flag-to-flag coverage for that, they had that windshield problem, kicked it out. You'd think, okay, just have to get around the last few laps, should be okay. It didn't quite go like that. Right there, the hood came up, and I'll never get those dramatic moments from last year, Sam, when the driver's head, he came out the side of the car and had to drive that right there, the entire last lap.
And lost the class lead.
Lost the class lead?
Right at the last minute. But he did drive the fastest lap ever driven by a guy whose hood was up and whose head was out of the driver's door. A new world record.
He could get the apexes just right in the left-handers, but those right-handers were tough.
Shows you just never give up, do you?
Some great memories, great memories. And that looks like the Ferrari.
Yeah, the team, the Japanese team, 4 Japanese gentlemen driving this Ferrari under the banner of the yellow.
No, he's just trying to restart. Looks like one of the vets. Oh, one of the vets is in, Calvin.
Yes, they are. Ron Fellows at the wheel. And as we recall, we had a slicks on the front, intermediates on the rear that seemed to work quite well. I believe they're still leading in class. They're going to full slicks right now. Ron is staying in for a double, possibly a triple. Once you're in a rhythm out there, particularly at night, it pays to try and keep the guys in the car and then give them a good rest when they finally get out. So this is a very strong driver lineup. They got Neifel, O'Connell, Frank Freon, and they're doing a little repair on the back body, the deck there. Actually, it's one of the Naga ducts they're actually taping up. That may be for cooling through an oil cooler. I'm not sure what's back there in the rear bodywork. Typically, you have oil coolers. I do not believe it's brake ducting back there. Ron Fellows is back on course.
Well, temperature is definitely dropping here as we get deeper into the evening, and it's going to be interesting. Obviously, they need to get some heat to some of these components. When we come back, maybe one of the topics we could touch on is how those GTS, the GT1 Porsches running in GTS with those turbos might come on here. Black flag on this one, Calvin. Do you have any idea what may happen?
Well, I think what happened, Greg, if you recall, Eric Vanderpool had that spin. They took the front nose off to clear out the radiator grills, and I think they may not have tightened up the connector there to the headlights, to the main part of the chassis. So that's what they believe the problem is. It's not really a concern with the officials bringing them in. It's impossible for a driver to get through that infield at speed with no headlights. So Ralph has radioed in. He's going to need to bring it in. They're going to look at the connector. Hopefully it will be a quick fix on the Ferrari.
Well, Calvin, don't you agree? The main threat really is not so much that he can't see, that Ralph can't see where he's going. It's that the other cars can't see him coming up on him.
Oh, absolutely. As you know, driving around here, Sam, traffic is a major problem, and the slower cars really rely on the flash of the headlights to see them coming. You're so, in your own zone, concentrating on the racetrack in these conditions, and you're not going to be looking for a car without headlights to slide down the inside.
Here he comes now.
He's making this move in. Exactly.
This will probably cost fully a lap. It's hard to get these noses off that quickly.
Calvin, we know you're there. Go ahead.
Okay, Ralph brings it to a stop, gets the drink bottle. They're going to top him up with fuel. And actually, on the inside, it looks like they've got him working, okay? So there was a connector there. They've tightened it up. The headlights are back on. Full strength. They're just getting the last few drops of fuel in. And Ralph is back underway.
It's conceivable he didn't even know or wasn't sure how to turn those lights on. That's not impossible. He could turn on awfully easily.
The mechanic just raced in and turned them on.
Yeah. Well, I've made mistakes like that, I'm embarrassed to say. We have Pete Lyons with us, one of the greatest writers, I think, in all of the history of the last 20 or 30 years.
Huge development. This is the Zero Weizsäck machine. And as Scott Maxwell was behind the wheel, a transmission problem. And my thought was that as this car, if you think back to 95 and that Kramer Porsche that was supposed to be really a non-factor in that one, Jeremy Dale even said during the night that car with that turbo, when it got real cold, was producing awesome power. They weren't that far behind Ron Fellows in that #2 Corvette. And as we got deep into the evening here and it cooled off, that #2 car could have become a real factor. That obviously is going to be a lot more problematic for them at this time. Welcome back to the Rolex 24 here at Daytona. That is the number 54 V8 BMW that was running second in GT. It stopped, and a long one. Problems with the right front. Calvin, any idea what's happening?
Well, I think what the team is telling me, they're not wanting to say much, but I believe actually there may have been some major mix-up here. The mechanic went to put the right front on, and it seems like the actual wheel center was incorrectly machined, and a lot of these teams run brand new wheels and tires, obviously tires, but brand new wheels for these cars at the 24-hour, and for some reason the wheel nut would not tighten up on the new wheel, so there's a major mix-up while the team had to scramble to the back of the pit box, grab another wheel and tire, bring it up over the wall. They were looking at the brakes initially. They okayed the brakes. They're a brand new pad and wrote it from performance friction, which they're very happy with. Stuckey jumped out, as far as said, behind the wheel right now.
We're getting a report of a big plume of smoke coming down into the pit area. You're watching that number 54 BMW, and he's just about to run up and into that. Be able to see some of the smoke unfold here. There it is. It's going to be interesting to see just exactly what happened. But
that's the number 38 car. Went right in behind the wall. Sasha Maassen obviously bringing it in. That's where the smoke came from.
Oh, wow.
That's the engine I just said 2 minutes ago.
Yeah,
reliable power train out there, right?
Yeah, I think Guy Hobbs is right now
dissociating himself from
trying desperately to.
Well, that's an amazing development now, of course, and the number 24 Marcos is in, the car that was so quick, running second in GTS. Driver change here. I believe that's Corusser who's stepping out. So they are indeed doing a driver's change. This car, except for that little piece of bodywork that had come loose at the back of the car, has been running like clockwork, Dave.
Now, Colin tells me he's going to do a double stint, and they've been very, very happy with this car. Of course, Colin is very familiar with it, knows how it runs after winning the championship in Europe last year with this particular car. And as they try to chase down the vets, he's very confident in the way that it's been working so far. I talked with their crew chief as well, Alan Mugglestone, and he says everything is going fine so far. It was a very guarded, optimistic comment.
Well, we were about to hear from Pete Lyons when, in fact, Pete himself pointed out that sudden burst of smoke. One thing I'm sure you've learned over the many, many years you've covered this sport is that the unexpected is, it seems like it's just around the corner all the time.
It's such a feature of these long-distance races, isn't it? It's like a war, a battle, but you can't stop because the importance of what you're doing.
You want us to follow?
Wasn't there a time, David, when your team had to rebuild the car in the middle of the night?
30 years ago this weekend, Pete, we had to stick the whole thing up when Mark got involved with a back marker on the banking and did a lot of damage to it, and we used about 1,000 yards of duct tape. We still came third, but it certainly spoiled our day. But yeah, you never know on these long races.
Well, the work continues as they look at the back of the number 38 champion Porsche. Problems developing for some of the people considered front runners here with some potential. We'll be right back.
Kept Sasha in the car. He's in radio communication. They've got flashlights. They're trying to determine where the problem lies, whether it's on the external or whether it's internal with the engine. They've got mechanics pouring all over this. Once you pull it behind the wall, you can put as many mechanics on the task as you have on the team, literally, and they're just working feverishly to try and determine exactly what's wrong. They went to have him fire it up a moment ago and then said, don't try it right now, but we'll give you an update shortly.
Awful lot of confidence in this team coming in. I mean, as Jeremy Dale had alluded to a few times, they had tested at Moroso. Then they came right here, went through practice, qualifying the race, never changed the engine, never changed the gearbox, felt that that was going to be able to get them all the way through. And fortunately, obviously, some huge concern and an awful lot of smoke. I mean, it absolutely filled up the east banking over there.
Yes, of course, it was the engine, but I don't think he was sitting in there if the engine had gone, because he'd know that.
Well, one cliche that bears repeating at this point is you just don't give up in this race. So you can lose enormous amounts of time and have the race come back to you, and I'm sure that's on their mind.
Seen that happen a number of times in the past. Somebody's been able to come back when another car has problems. And David, you were talking about this a little bit. You've had your share of long nights here. One in particular, I think, something 1968, a problem for you.
I've had 2 or 3 very, very long nights here. And of course, the worst thing about those long nights is when you're asleep in your motorhome. And oh my goodness me, look at that chap in the background there.
A youngster.
A veritable youngster. This GT4 is my first drive with golf. wire team, and we were humming along pretty well. We led for quite a long time. Our teammates spun the car and broke their gearbox. We took over the lead in the day. Then, of course, in the night, we came in and we had a major problem with the car. Which didn't seem to worry me too much at the time. Then as the morning progressed, this is 69 now, this is the next year. Same thing again, we were dicing it out with the 908 Porsches, and again we had a problem. Then 71, Mark Donoghue and I were on the pole with the 6th car, the Sunoco Ferrari, and it was absolutely the class of the field, the best Ferrari probably ever made. And then in the night, again I was woken up, Mark Donoghue standing in the door, and I said, "What the heck are you doing here?" And he said, "Ah, well, I just got involved in the back marker. I had spun in the banking. We put about 10,000 yards of duct tape on it and still came third." So that's the point. You just never, ever give up.
And those were Pete Lyons photographs. Those were Pete Lyons photographs.
There.
Well, thank you. That. Take a look at this stat here, folks. These are drivers who, of course, are also associated with Speed Vision, and you can take a look. A lot of success by some of them, and always good efforts by all of them.
I see wins all the way down to that bottom line, and then I see third. What about that?
I knew that was coming. I knew that was coming. Let's head down to Calvin Fish. He's with Sasha Moss.
Sasha, we saw smoke pouring out of the left bank of the turbo. What is the problem? Are you out for the day?
I really hope not, but it looks like, because I had to go, car in front of me spun, and I had to go down in revs, and the car afterwards didn't pull anymore. So I said I will come back into the pit, and just before pit entrance, something blew up in the rear, and well, it doesn't look good at all, I must say.
I know Dorsey mentioned in practice over the course of the week that you lost some top speed during one of the practice sessions. You thought you'd fixed it. They found some other issues this morning before the race start. Were you concerned about the engine going into this very long race?
Yeah, we had the top speed missing in the race as well. We didn't have any top speed, and it was getting worse a little bit, but I was not concerned. We would still run, but well, just now at the end it didn't pull at all. So maybe that was the reason. The problem got worse, and now that's it.
Current leaderboard overall. We'll be right back. 7th hour. We want to take you back, if you're just joining us, and let you know what unfolded in that 7th hour. There was a lot of activity going on. One of the cars, the Chamberlain Viper, had experienced quite a bit of problems even before this, but a huge problem with the tires. Butch Leitzinger brought the lead machine in. They decided to go to slicks. They felt it was ready. It was, except for a couple of spots on the track. Butch found one. Quick spin, no harm, no foul. He continued. Then the number 3 vet. Out goes Kelly Collins. In goes Little E. Dale Jr., guess what? Couple of spins on his outlap, but he was able to very quickly get to the pace. After the number 16 car was reeling in the number 12 Ferrari, Eric Vanderpool decided he better put slicks on. He too looped it, but when he went back on track, he got into the grass. He later had to pit because of some problems with overheating, but the racing between these two was absolutely fast and furious afterward, as Leitzinger tried to put that car down a lap, couldn't quite get it done, and then another gearbox failure for the Lista Crawford Judd.
And he said no, about the only thing is
the
that
number 16 car. Now Andy Wallace behind the wheel, and Andy has been clocking off some brilliant laps here and has done a nice job. The GT leader, number 31, the White Lightning Porsche, is down in the pits, and Dave Burns looks like they're busy.
Greg, I just spoke with crew chief Walter Gerber, and you're right about that. This is the first time, though, that they're going to run a double stint. Lucas Luer stays in the car for the very first time today. Walter said that this is to keep the drivers fresh, and that was especially true for Mike Fitzgerald, who ran the entire time during the rain. And Mike told me the only thing was malfunctioning, the wiper. It was flapping in the wind on the pit exit there.
Just what we were talking about.
Who's that?
Look at that.
He gave it a pretty solid whack, too.
He did give it a pretty solid whack. I tell you, that pit exit here is unbelievably tight, narrow, and slippery.
Now look at the nightmare as he tries to find his way back out.
It's one of the racers,
wondering if he's damaged the car. This is a terrible moment, of course, for a driver. And now he comes on right up next to his teammate.
Well, especially when you're the race leader. Let's watch it from this angle.
He locks him up. He realized a little brain fade, don't you think, David?
Yeah.
Realized as it tightens up there, and it does, just at that point, he went for the brakes, locked him up, and just understeered right into the thing.
And of course, one of the problems is that he's been out there racing on the track, which is probably now totally dry, especially on the line. And pit lane and the pit exit is still very wet.
So there's a definite sheen on the track where he was in it.
But he may not have damaged the car.
The only concern with these Porsche GT3s, and I've noticed this the past couple of years, the radiator right down in front of that wheel. And if you fold it up any body work and is cutting down the airflow into that radiator,
well, this is when you just hate it as a driver, because now he's watching the gauges. He knows that, obviously, and he's trying to keep the pace up. He's got his other team car right there, and he's sick at heart because he knows he's made a mistake, and he's trying to think, if the thing does overheat, what on earth can I say? What excuse can I
say ran into me?
You know, and he knows it's all his fault. There's just no other way. Dale here saying, hey guys, I noticed a driver named Bucknam in one of the cars. Is he perchance related to the late Ronnie Bucknam, Honda's first Formula One driver? Well, you bet he is. It's Jeff Honda, Jeff Bucknam, and we have a special here that gives you a feeling for his dad, Ronnie Bucknam, who I drove with several times many, many years ago. A fine man. And we are coming up right now. The trajectory of Ronnie Bucknam's career soared suddenly when he went from SCCA racer to Honda's driver in Formula One overnight. That was in 1964, and in a sense, all the achievements of his next decade in the sport would seem, in a sense, anticlimactic, thus casting a shadow over a distinguished career. After 2 years and 11 Grand Prix for Honda, Ronnie found himself part of Ford's All-Star Le Mans team in 1966. Driving a gold GT40, he mixed it with the leaders in the early going and went on to finish a strong third as the Ford juggernaut swept the first 3 spots. I had the privilege of having Ronnie as a co-driver during the years he drove Ferraris for Luigi Canetti's North American racing team. We finished 4th at Le Mans in a rain-soaked race in 1970, and Ronnie paired with Tony Adamowicz to take 2nd at Daytona.
What a great career he had, obviously, and of course your association with him, Sam, very special.
2 cars on this team. Walter Gerber is overseeing the Popes Luer Fitzgerald team, and also Christian Menzel running. Walter, what has Lucas said on the radio since his incident leaving pit lane?
Well, he just brushed the wall a little bit down there, but everything stayed okay. The car's handling good, water and oil temperature staying good, so the car's handling good right now.
This is Lucas' second 24 hours. I mean, do you think it had anything to do with the fact that he came in on tires that had been out there for a long time and went out on colds? This was only his first double stint of the night.
Yeah, that is first double stint. He was in for quite a long yellow before. But yeah, the pit lane is probably still very wet and the track is dry, so maybe just misjudged a little bit.
But you're not worried at all about his talent, are you?
No, not at all.
Lucas Luer is a hard charger. He's been through the Porsche Carrera Cup, and he's definitely a Porsche driver for the future.
Well, going right for a check on brakes, I would suspect, Sam. They like what they're doing with tires, apparently, Dave. They put that right front right back on.
Yes, they did, Greg. They are adding oil, which is not uncommon, of course. They are putting it in right on the right-hand side, and Andy is going to stay in the car at this point. So they are still fueling the car at this point and also cleaning it off, but everything else looks routine. So, like you say, Greg, they took a quick look, liked what they saw, and sent the leader back out.
Coming up in just a moment, the Greg Kramer feature. I'm dying to see it.
So is Greg Kramer.
Yeah, I think we all are.
Postpone that for just a moment as we look at the number 20 machine.
Let's go back down to Dave Burns. Dave?
Yeah, Greg Vex Pappas is getting in now as Rob Dyson hops out after his single stint. And they will put Max in. He might consider Max one of those young guys to take a double stint. And they will stay with slicks, obviously. The track very dry. Now there hasn't been a drop of rain since I've been out here at the start of the 7th hour, and Max is gone.
Young enough, certainly, and incredibly fit. Max Pappas absolutely lives for his physical regimen to stay trim, of course, driving in the kart championship as well. And he never can forget what he did a few years ago in that Ferrari in that last hour. Just some unbelievable racing.
Greg, your moment has come around at last now. The Greg Kramer feature is teed up and ready to go, and brace your feet because here it comes. What do we see here?
Who is that?
Who is that on the left? Uh-oh.
Oh, my goodness me.
Very rough and tough looking.
Oh, and slow-mo. Slow-mo.
Getting it right on the second time. Got that blue flag out there. Decides not to show it. Hey,
Very
you have to know when to pull it, man. Part of valor.
That's right.
You
are
awesome.
It's not just throwing the blue, it's knowing when not to do it, and that's my story, and I'm sticking with it.
I know on a serious note how much working with the course workers means to you, and how much they mean, of course, to the race.
That's very true, and I do enjoy that immensely. There is your 4th place overall machine, 3rd in the SRP category, Calvin.
Well, they've been having a great run today, Greg, and it's actually Rick Sutherland behind the wheel now. I believe they have some cooling prop. They took the tail off. They really tried to run some water through the radiator system. They're done over on the left side right now. But this team is down to 3 drivers. The owner of the car, Scott Schubart, and the #1 driver on the team, has come down with flu over the last 48 hours. He doesn't think he's going to be making it. So these 3 guys are really working hard to try and keep this car towards the front. And this car, with this engine in there, is really overweight when you get to these endurance races. What they do, they put a double battery on there, toolkit, double ECU spark boxes, and I spoke to Phil Creighton, and he said this car's about 100 pounds overweight, which certainly handicaps the performance, and if they get stranded out on course, they'll be in good shape.
That's part of that preparation, isn't it? I mean, obviously, you've got to think in terms of a long-distance race of other things that can unfold other than just pace and problems that might unfold out on the track, so you can be able to at least get back into the pits and let a very competent crew from Phil Creighton be able to take care of things. So good forethought, I think, maybe unfolding right there as well. So
exactly. By the way, that Greg Kramer feature was not the request of an email. We'll be right back.
Daytona, and it is Daytona, and that means Dale Earnhardt, who may have said, it's the youngsters' time to go out and run around at night. He cannot stay out of that car. Dale Earnhardt will be getting behind the wheel of the #3 Corvette at its next pit stop. He is ready. He is anxious. You saw him give a thumbs up. He wants to get on board and give it.
Sort of softened this year by all the light around the track, because it used to be very, very dark here all the way around.
What does it feel like when you're ready to get in the car? You haven't been in it for a while, and it's dark.
Nervous.
Well, if the car,
you feel nervous.
If the car's going well, it just makes such a big difference. I mean, obviously their car is going very, very well, and it makes a heck of a difference to your disposition as you get in the car.
But you know, one thing is, like, he's sharing a lot of camaraderie right now, but in just a few minutes he'll be in that car and he'll be absolutely alone for the next 2 hours.
And it's not as though this is something he hasn't done. I mean, they've undergone a very thorough testing regimen. He's familiar with this car. He may not be familiar with it in a wet condition, but they've tested this car a lot.
Oh, sure, but this is the race. This is where all the marbles. I mean, this is different, and he's responding. The only thing is, he's in his late 40s. Those old rods and cones in the eyes there, you know, if you're going to have trouble with depth perception, this is when you start to have it. I mean, I don't think he's got too many years left where he'll be able to see as well as he would want to at night.
I hope his depth perception is still pretty good when they drive those Winston Cup cars about 2 inches away.
Aboard this Chevy Corvette taken over from Kelly Collins, and I think there may be some Kelly Collins influence on that paint scheme. That's a little bit more abstract than you'd expect from Dale Sr., but he's getting behind the wheel. He looked like he was having a good time with the crew. Very relaxed this time. He looked a little bit more apprehensive in the first stint, but very cool. What they're doing with the tires, slick tires obviously, but a very different compound front to rear. We've got 480s on the front and 310s on the rear, so that's a distinct difference, about 2 compound stages different in the tires, so they're looking for traction on the back end of this.
Dale Earnhardt taking the car out
feeling good about himself. I'm pretty sure he seemed very confident with the crew there, and I think we're about to see some terrific driving from the Intimidator. I think he's going to really enjoy the next couple hours.
Well, so are we. By the way, I want to let a lot of our emailers mentioned after his first stint where we stayed with him on board for a number of laps. They just love watching that. Trust me, we'll do it again. Right now, of course, he's just blending online, coming out, and it's going to take a lap or two for him to really find the groove and get up to speed. Here's where everybody's had their problems.
See, he's letting guys go by on the inside, not trying to take the line there away from him. That's very smart stuff. That was the Rodriguez hairpin, by the way. We got an email about that. What was the Rodriguez hairpin named after? Well, it was Pedro Rodriguez, one of the two great Rodriguez racing brothers, who both of them, of course, were killed. Pedro was honored here.
Pedro won this race, and of course Ricardo Rodriguez, when he raced here in 1962, was certainly reputed to be underage.
It's fitting that this race maybe is a little wet, because I understand Chris Eamon once made the comment about Pedro during a sports car race that Pedro was just disappearing in the rain. He said, somebody want to tell Pedro it's raining? The guy was brilliant in the wet.
I watched him in soccer. He was terrific.
On board now, again, with Dale Earnhardt, and of course Sandy Hang has been spending a lot of time here as this race has been unfolding, keeping track of what's been unfolding for the team itself. Let's go to another Corvette Diary with Sandy.
Any special menu
Potatoes?
requests?
Menu requests, the drivers really like a lot of pasta. They love pasta.
They loading up on carbos?
They're loading on carbos. We've been carbo loading for 4 days now with the drivers. We keep pasta, and they like plain pasta. Maybe a little bit of olive oil, and they like to have some Parmesan cheese on there.
Okay, so when do you sleep?
Well, we got to bed last night, 11:30. Got up this morning about 4:30. 20-minute drive into the track. Right.
So what do you think of Steve's food? Horrible? It's not adequate?
Stephen wrecked me.
Pasta?
Pasta, third one. No, last one. There you go. Yeah.
Which one you want? Plain?
Can you give me a scoop for him, too? Or is that for you? Sure, that's what you ate.
He's
vegetarian, yeah.
I'm a vegetarian. You got the right guy. Because a race like this really taxes a driver physically.
How important is it to have a hot meal at this juncture?
It's important to maintain a level of nutrition. It doesn't have to be a hot meal necessarily, but that's just more of a comfort factor. In a long race, it's important for the drivers to take care of their bodies, because after 6 to 10 hours of driving by tomorrow morning, it'll tell. And we've got to be able to maintain a certain level of, a very, very high level of concentration all the time. Can I say more?
Can I eat you?
Ask me something else. Here you go, darling. Here, have some water.
Is it hot? It's hot. Excellent.
Great sandwich. Good sandwich and chicken breast on the side. Oh, that keeps right. For the packages, for the cookies and the silverware.
It's raining out.
It's raining out. It's cold out. We're trying to keep the food warm. Trying to get the food warm to the teams. Teams don't appreciate food when it gets out there cold.
Last of the meals ready to go? Delivery time. I noticed you wrapped them all in plastic, and then you've also put styrofoam trying to keep them warm. It's bone chilling now. How important is
it? It is very cold. It's very important. When I started out racing, I came out here as a race team truck driver in 1982. We didn't get anything like that. We got peanut butter sandwiches in the middle of the night. And you stayed up 24 hours, and you got some water, and you were lucky to get a hot cup of coffee in the morning.
Food has arrived.
The food has arrived, and they are going to be happy.
This is your concession stand. Don't forget to pick up the official program souvenirs in the garage area, right in behind that Rolex sign and behind the NASCAR Winston Cup Series. It says, of course,
They'll be away.
We make our coffee like the Europeans do, nice and strong.
We also talked about...
Okay, we got to go get the next one.
Team able to partake. That's nice as well. The number 2 vet, quick pit stop. It's back out. We'll be back.
Crew chiefs the effort. And Irv even said this car is way too brand new to win the 24, but at the rate they're going, guys, except for this spin, they could do it.
Well, it's clearly big fast. Let's go back and take a look at what just happened here. And Sam, you got to imagine just that cold tire syndrome.
Yeah, and of course, right there in the Rodriguez hairpin. I mean, it just seems like it's very hard to get these cars out of pit lane.
Seems to be almost the exact spot, about 2/3 of the way around. I suppose it's where they start giving it a bit of welly, and
and he's going so slowly too. You really feel bad for him. I mean, the cars just seem to absolutely have no grip there at all.
Well, that might be I mean, I think you may have hit it. They're going so slowly, that's where they might start to roll on the power, and as opposed to coming through at race pace, you're accelerating, and it's breaking loose. There's your number 2 Corvette right there leading in GTS right now, having a very solid run. In the hands of Ron Fellows and the rest of the gang behind the wheel of that car, Chris Neifel, Frank Freon, Johnny O'Connell, and they've been running a very effective race thus far. But they're only 11 laps back of the overall leader right now, and of course, one major problem that can go away in a heartbeat. So, I mean, I think you're right. I think, obviously, that's got to be in the back of their mind a little bit at any rate. And by the way, that number 44 vet we wanted to mention, they were 46. The leader in that class is the number 11 Camaro, Kenny Buck, Doug Mills, Dick Greer. Of course, Dick Greer, one of the older drivers here and just a standout driver in endurance racing for many years, along with the youngsters. The 8th hour has completed, and there was some drama unfolding in that hour as well. There you see the number 12 Ricci Ferrari lightless, except for that little spotlight. Easy fix, a connector at work, loop bang, right there. The mechanic reached in, snugged it up, and they're back out. A loss of time. It did cost them a lap. The second place car in GTS, the number 0 Bitesick machine, going so fast with a great driver lineup. Gearbox problems right behind the wall. Haven't seen it since. And for the GT leader, in the hands of Lucas Luhr, boom, exiting the pits, a little slick there, got into brakes, on board right there, and I mean, it moved that car a bunch. Obviously, they were very concerned about it. Apparently, it's okay. The car continues to lead. There it is. A little bit of damage to that right front corner. Doesn't seem to be affecting it. However, of great concern to them is about 15 seconds behind on the same lap is a guy named Boris Said in the number 54 BMW, and he has been streaming toward this guy by about 2 seconds a lap. There is Boris, and he's got that V8 powered BMW M3, and he is absolutely hooked up right now and is closing up on the GT leader, the number 31 car. Lucas Luhr still on board. You're running.
Well, it just caught out Dave Amick just a few minutes ago, so it's still obviously very slippery, that Rodriguez horseshoe.
With 50 cars on the track, that's 14 per mile. We started with 23 per mile. That's quite a dramatic change.
Significant change.
Certainly not easy for the drivers, of course, at this time of night, but still at all, traffic being what it is, it always seems to gather in groups, and when you're rocketing through the field like Andy Wallace is, and of course the Ferrari with Kellner's at the wheel, you come across these bunches of cars. It's still difficult to find your way through.
But you know, David, it's easier in a way when you're the fastest car, isn't it? Because everything is in sort of one dimension. You pass other cars.
Yeah, it's all in front of you.
When you're kind of in the middle, in the GT class, that you're looking at behind you and in front of you all the time.
Yeah, exactly. You're looking both directions. And whoa, somebody gone off there at the entry to turn one of the GT cars, coming back over the grass.
With no lights on at the back.
Now, we're getting a report. We're watching the number 12 Ferrari. We understand that car might be making its way down into the pits here in fairly short order. So we're going to keep an eye out for that. The rumor has it Alan McNish might be getting behind the wheel. I wanted to touch on something. Obviously, the cat's out of the bag. Yes, I love corner working, and I do it whenever I possibly can. So I'm certainly not anything objective on it. We do have an email question. Are flagger volunteers or corner workers, do they get paid, or are they actually volunteers? And that comes from Brian Barlow in Churchville, New York. They indeed are volunteers, to the point not just of coming in here. They don't even get expenses. Many of them pay their own airfare, their own lodging, meals, and the like. They get a meal during the day, occasionally a little party in the evening, but they are volunteers. And which leads me to another thing I wanted to mention. I've seen a lot of shots here as we're watching in areas of this track where before the volunteers would literally just end up holding a button to be able to push a yellow light that would come on. Now with the lights, we see them actually actively blue flagging and yellow flagging That's more information to the drivers that they didn't have before. That's got to be a bit of a bonus as well, to be able to see those blue flags and know more what's happening behind you.
Very true. And another point about being a flag worker, and I've taken a turn or two just very briefly myself, it is absolutely thrilling to stand that close to the cars, isn't it? I mean, that's the payoff. You really get to see it, and you get a chance to do, well, to save somebody's life, frankly, if something were to go wrong right where you were standing, which you hope, of course, never happens.
Well, when you're sitting there listening on the headset and you're actually communicating with race control, and if there is an incident of some sort and you're helping that car get moved or you're covering with a flag or whatever, aside from driving, that's the next closest thing to being a participant. I mean, you truly feel that you are involved in this as opposed to just being there watching. And as you said, too, when you're that close and those cars come by, when a V12 Ferrari or a V10 Judd rips by you about 10 feet away, even with the headphones and the earplugs in, you feel it. And that is something very special indeed. And if you can't drive, you can at least get out there and get that close to it and really be involved.
Here goes a Ferrari doing some ripping right by.
In one of those traffic jams I was just talking about. Look at that, right in the middle of this clutch of cars, all struggling.
Yeah, this is an interesting development. We're watching the number 43 machine down in pit lane. That's Peter Barron, Leo Hendry, Gianluigi Pittoni, and Kyle Petty. That's the car. And I'll try and pick up here. I think Kyle has obviously gotten out. And let's go down to Dave.
Actually, Greg, he has gotten in. Kyle Petty now straps in. Peter Barron hopped out. It was interesting when he put him in the car. You know, drivers helped him with the belts and everything, but Peter actually pushed Kyle's head down under the bar to get him in the car, so he didn't bang his head. I thought that was very interesting.
It is. He wants to know where do the drivers sleep when they're not racing. I love this 24-hour coverage. Well, Jeff, they sleep. It's a pretty luxurious accommodation these days. Most of these teams have got some very sophisticated motorhomes out the back there. Someone like Dale Earnhardt, of course, has got a $500,000 motorhome, which he sleeps in. And most of the teams put up some sort of makeshift tent or some other facility for these guys to sleep. But the thing is, when you're driving one of these 24-hour races, it's really hard to just switch off and go to sleep. Apart from anything else, you're right in the middle of all this noise.
It's very true indeed. You saw a shot of the number 54 BMW. Boris said has brought it in. Looks like he's staying, I think, he's staying on board. So we'll see as he heads back out. Nope, that is not Boris. They did do a driver's change, so we'll update up in the not-too-distant future. And Calvin Fish, we understand there are some specific plans for this stop of a technical nature. What's up?
Well, Greg, they expected to change the front brakes twice in this event. We're just past the 8-hour mark, so it's time to change the front pads. You can see the amount of meat that they have on them. And what happens is when they wear down, they actually get out there and the pistons really get extended from the caliper. So they have a special tool here where they actually wedge into the caliper. And when they push this, it puts the brake pistons back into position so they can then actually get the brake pads in. So they'll be changing the brake pads and the front rotors on the next pit stop. They'll do that one more time, and the rears will be done about halfway through. Now, the team also says this tool is very handy as well when you're trying to prize over an Alan McNish's wallet to get him to buy dinner.
Their metabolism just lets them really come alive, and you can see some of these teams are like that. And you need everybody on the team to be kind of one mind. I must say I was intrigued by the thought of where you go to sleep. An anecdote from my memory was at Le Mans 1970 when it rained most of the time. I will not say what team I was driving for, but I went to this tiny little trailer we had, a little caravan really with paper-thin walls, and hoped to get just a half hour of sleep. I mean, we were doing only single stints. The conditions were so brutal. And when I arrived there, I found the trailer was vibrating and the door was locked. I'm afraid it was not possible for me to go in and have a little nap. The trailer was already in use.
But you're right, those little tiny trailers were so small. I mean, they're like little English caravans, and of course there was no other bathroom facilities there at all, unlike today where everybody's got hot and cold.
Development, the number 3 vet is in, and there is damage to that right front. The tire is gone. Let's go down to Calvin.
Greg, the wheel is severely damaged there. He may have run into another car. We're unsure. Not too much bodywork damage. The tire come off the rim and did damage the inner fender just a little bit. You can see it right there. We've got a great close-up shot of the damage. The team are going to work to put new tires on and fueled him up. He should be refiring it here shortly. A little bit of a delay on the left front. And I'm not sure what they have done. They're actually just downloading. They download the car for data acquisition during these pit stops so they can actually trace all of the fuel management and everything else once the car is back on track.
Well, the
Intimidator has to remember these are mag wheels, not steel.
Oh, I was wondering. I mean, there aren't a lot of curves here, but could he have flipped a curve of some sort?
Nah, you hit somebody. Don't you think?
I'm trying to play the positive spin on this.
Oh, I hope this isn't. I made light of it, thinking it was nothing really. I hope.
No, there's also a headlight
smoke coming
as well.
There's smoke coming out of that right. I wonder if he clipped the wall up there in the back.
That doesn't look good. Handling looks bad too.
Something looks seriously amiss here. The headlight is out on that side as well, and I mean that may be a sign of this contact.
Taking it very cautiously going down there into the kink.